Take a nice deep breath in. Notice how the stomach rises, chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Feel a nice warm wave of energy rising up the spine into your heart center. You can put one hand on your heart if that helps you. Just check in and scan your mind, so noticing any thoughts and emotions going on, particularly anything that feels at all negative, limiting, contracted, constricting. Notice the sensations in the body, notice the emotions, the thoughts. And then just to let them go. Give yourself some space, some openness for the rest of the session. So I'm just going to let all of that go with the help of your breath, breathing out. And just releasing any dark, negative thoughts. Just blowing it all out. Breeze of your breath. And finding some stillness at the bottom of the exhale. Just noticing the breath get into a nice deep slow rhythm of the breath. So breathing in, breathing out. Noticing how the stomach rises, the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. And then exhale. Breathing out. Noticing how the air flows in and out of the nostrils. It's getting into this very nice, calm, gentle, relaxing state of mind. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. And just breathe, relax, and be still. And any thoughts come into your head, just letting them go. Imagine they're just like dark cloud patterns, just blowing away with the breeze of your breath into the nothingness that they really are. And you're getting more and more relaxed with every breath. Just sinking a little bit deeper, going deeper and deeper. into this lovely, peaceful, calm, relaxed state of mind. Right, I'm just just observe your thoughts, your emotions, sensations. If there's anything that's not particularly helpful,
Hello everyone.
just let it go. Just let it go. So I'm just going to guide you through a forgiveness exercise. It's a composite forgiveness exercise based on all the teachings on forgiveness in the Course in Miracles. So just pick an issue that you think you need to let go of. Could be related to a person, a situation arising in your life. Often there's a combination of factors. And just observe the thoughts and emotions that arise when you bring this to mind. I'm just going to guide you through some of the forgiveness exercises contained in A Course in Miracles. So select a person related to the situation. Someone you do not like, says Jesus. This is from Workbook Lesson 78. Who seems to irritate you or to cause regret in you if you should meet him or her. One you actively despise or merely try to overlook. Someone perhaps you fear, someone you even hate. Someone you think you love who angers you. Someone you call a friend, whom you see as difficult at times or hard to please, demanding, irritating, or untrue to the ideal you should accept as he is according to the role you set for him. You know the one to choose. He's crossed your mind already. He will do. So we'll attempt to hold him in our minds, this person, first as you now consider him or her. So see the person as clearly as you can. In that same form to which you are accustomed. Regard his body with its flaws and its better points as well. See his or her face, the person's hands and feet, their clothing. Watch them smile. See familiar gestures that they make so frequently. Now, hold this picture clearly in mind. Review this person's faults, the difficulties you've had with them, the pain that they've caused you, the neglect, and all the little and the larger hurts they gave. Think of the person's mistakes and even of his, quote, sins. Catalog his sins as one by one they cross your mind. Briefly consider all the evil things you thought about him. And just feel into that. And there's to feel these energy of these thoughts and emotions, even if it's not pleasant. So breathe in just to help you. And then think of this. What you're seeing now conceals from you the sight of one who can forgive you all your sins. Sacred hands can take the nails which pierce your own away and lift the crown of thorns which you have placed upon your bleeding head. So ask of the Holy Spirit, let me perceive forgiveness as it is. Let this help me learn what forgiveness means. So today we go beyond the grievances. We will not wait before the shield of hate, but lay it down and gently lift our eyes in silence to behold the Son of God. He waits for you beyond your grievances. As you lay them down, he or she will appear in shining light where each one stood before. And so you exhale. I have a sense of just letting go of the thoughts, the emotions, physical sensations that go along with grievances. So really any negative, contracted, constricted, limiting thoughts and emotions, just drop them all. And then ask the Holy Spirit, who knows this Son of God, in his reality and truth, that we may look on him or her a different way and see our Savior shining in the light of true forgiveness given unto us. And ask him, let me behold my Savior in this one you have appointed as the one for me to ask, to lead me to the holy light in which he stands, that I may join him there. So just breathe in. Imagine you breathing in this beautiful golden white light. Don't visualize light very well. Just imagine a feeling of lightness flowing into every pore, every cell, every muscle, every part of your body, every part of your mind. Say to yourself, let me behold my Savior in this one you have appointed as the one for me to ask, to lead me to the holy light in which he stands, that I may join him there. And feel a sense of that light being lifted up as you think of him who grieved you. Let your mind be shown the light in him beyond your grievances. What is in him will shine so brightly in your grateful vision that you will merely love him and be glad. You will not think to judge him. Overlook his mind and body, seeing only the face of Christ shining in front of you. Behold the Son of God, and look upon his purity and be still. In quiet, look upon his holiness, and offer thanks unto his Father that no guilt has ever touched him. When you feel into this, feel the lightness of your own being when you do this. There is no way to think of him but this, if you would know the truth about yourself. So say to yourself, I thank you, Father, Source, for your perfect Son, the perfect extension. That's what the Son of God is. And in his glory will I see my own. And just keep breathing, watching your breath, nice, deep, slow, rhythmical breaths, sinking deeply into this very calm, relaxed state of mind in which forgiveness becomes possible. So say to your brother, because I will to know myself, I see you as God's Son and my brother. Look on your brother and behold in him the whole reversal of the laws that seem to rule this world. In him is heaven. See sin in him instead, and heaven is lost to you. But see him as he is, and what is yours shines from him to you. Be willing then to see your brother sinless, that Christ may rise before your vision and give you joy. Your brother's holiness is sacrament and benediction unto you. His holiness gives life to you, so breathe that in. This eternal life, essence, presence, force that's always there. If you judge your brother and you condemn him, then you deny that life essence. You deny that he is your brother, and you deny yourself. Your brother may not know who he is. There is a light in his mind which does know. This light can shine into yours. Say then to your brother, light in you is all that I would see, and name him. Light and joy and peace abide in you. Your sinlessness is guaranteed by God, by love itself. Your brother's sinlessness is given you in shining light, to look on with the Holy Spirit's vision and to rejoice in along with him. Receive him now as more than friend to you. For in that light, his holiness shows you your Savior, saved and saving, healed and whole. So breathing in the light, just see your brother in a different light. See the inner light shining. You might bring to mind his physical appearance again, but there's a different quality now. There's an inner light that's shining through that. He or she is healed and whole. Before this light, his or her body disappears, as heavy shadows must give way to light. In glory will you see your brother then. Hold him now, whom you have seen as merely flesh and bone, and recognize that Christ has come to you. And just breathe that essence, that Christ essence, perfect love in. So every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body. As you see your brother, so you see yourself. So you see Christ, the perfect Son of God, the perfect love that you are. You see yourself in that. Behold your friend, the Christ who stands beside you. How holy and how beautiful he is. You thought he sinned because you cast the veil of sin upon him to hide his loveliness. Yet still he holds forgiveness out to you to share his holiness. Look on your risen friend and celebrate his holiness. Brother, come, let me look on you. Say to him, your loveliness reflects my own. Your sinlessness is mine. You stand forgiven, and I stand with you. The light has come. I have forgiven you. Exhale. Just have a sense of really letting go of any remaining darkness, grievances. If you notice even a scrap of anger, a little bit of resentment, a bit of frustration, just blow all these dark grievances out. And let the light that shines beyond them shine into your mind. Be very quiet now and look upon your shining Savior. No dark grievances obscure the sight of him. Within the darkness, see the Savior from the dark and understand your brother as his Father's mind shows him to you. And he will step forth from darkness as you look on him, and you will see the dark no more. So have a sense of this light coming into your mind, and you see your brother in this light. He will come forth to shine on you and give you back the gift of freedom. See how eagerly he comes and steps aside from heavy shadows that have hidden him and shines on you in gratitude and love. The Savior from illusion has come to greet you and lead you home with him. Ask this of him that he may set you free. So make this request as you breathe in to this person. So give me your blessing, Holy Son of God. I would behold you with the eyes of Christ and see my perfect sinlessness in you. As you ask of it, so you receive the blessing. Take this blessing and feel how your heart is lifted. You can put one hand in your heart center and helps you. Just breathe in and feel a sense of being lifted up in your heart and your fear released. So as you exhale, just releasing any fear. Truth is, we're scared to become one again because it means our separate identity must die. So the ego holds on in fear. But actually you don't want to be separate from your brother. Separation brings only pain and misery and suffering and sickness and death. So take this blessing. Feel how your heart is lifted and fear is released. But sometime in the future, but right now. Now the light in you must be as bright as shines in him. So breathe that light in. Imagine breathing it into every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every corner of your mind. Getting brighter and stronger. Sense of a lightness in your being, in your heart. How could he fail to welcome you into his heart with loving invitation, eager to unite with one like him in holiness? So come, let us join our brother in the holy place of peace. Join your brother there. Now, he's led you to the holy light in which he stands, and you have joined with him. So say, you stand with me in light, and name the person. You stand with me in light. Name them again. You stand with me in light. And now sink into that light. Just surrender to it. There is no you or other person. There is only the light. So just surrender to it. The complete letting go experience. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do. There's nothing else to think about. The next couple of minutes, just breathe, relax, be still, and be in the light. The next 2 minutes of deep silence. And if any thoughts arise about this person or anyone else that are less than loving, just observe them casually. They have no meaning. They have no power. They're like dark clouds just drifting by. They have no power to obscure the eternal blue sky of your awareness and light of your source that shines through it. It shines on you and on everyone. So once again, just the breeze of your breath, blow these dark clouds away. Let the light just shine through your mind. Bring this person, bring everyone into the light. And we'll lift it into the light together. And so there are no dark figures anymore. There are no bodies, no separate personalities, identities. Imagine everything merging into this brilliant golden and white light in your mind. And that's all there is. There is nothing else. So surrender to that experience of wholeness, oneness, total light. The next couple of minutes of deep silence. So you stand with me in light to anyone. Stand with me in the light as one. And then let the Holy Spirit give you an experience of that oneness and unity with your brother, or your brothers, for the next 2 minutes of deep silence. And so very gently bring your awareness back from this deep connected state of light awareness into the body, into senses, and into the world. But you're going to retain that connection with the light the rest of the session, the rest of the afternoon and evening. It is your true awareness. It can never really be lost. You set that intention now, you stay connected to the light, so it is said, so it is done. Now it's time just to bring a bit of your awareness back into the body, into the breath and the world. So breathing in, noticing stomach rising, the chest rising, subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Pausing at the top of the inhale. Scan your mind again, notice any thoughts and emotions. It's just light, empty, spacious awareness. Just appreciate that. Smile. This is the truth of who you are. True reality dawning on your mind at last. And appreciate that. If there's any negativity at all, dark thoughts, grievances towards anyone, still knocking around, but just observe them, and one more time, blow them away with the breeze of your breath. They're just like dark clouds. Releasing. To the nothingness they really are. Stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. While your tension is down in your lower stomach and your groin, on the count of 2, notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground. Notice what you're feeling and touching. Your hands, maybe there's a subtle flow of air on your skin. Notice that. Notice the smell in your nose, the air flows in to your nostrils. And there's a subtle taste in your mouth, notice that. And notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Notice how the sounds arise and then subside. Even a continuous sound like the whirring of a computer fan, for instance. Notice the stillness within which that arises. There's this exquisite stillness, which is really just another aspect of the light. Just perceive it differently. With that stillness, that light, it's all the same thing. It's one reality. So notice that in these different ways through the senses. And just anchor your awareness in that stillness. And that stillness will guide you through the rest of the session and the day and the weekend. So it is said, and so it is done. And then on the count of 3, open your eyes. Just take a minute to look around. Notice the various objects in the room around you. Just very casually, there's no need to name anything or judge it or label it. Then you move on to something else. And if you do the exercise correctly, you should notice that your awareness is exactly the same. There's no difference. Doesn't matter what you're perceiving with the body's eyes or what you're hearing. It's all the same. This is one underlying awareness. is the same, and this is what Jesus is directing us to. This is the truth of who you are. Your true awareness is the light that he's referring to here. And everyone shares that awareness, which is why we stand with each other in the light. Well, that brings us to the end of the meditation. I hope you enjoyed that. That was from, just to give credit where credit's due, the Circle of Atonement. Downloaded this from their website, so you can go and get it if you want. It's just a composition of various bits on forgiveness from various parts of the course, the workbook, the text, even saw the manual for teachers, which Robert Perry's put together in a kind of sequence, so you can do it as a meditation. He recommends reading it, but obviously I've just guided it, so then you don't have to worry about reading it. Particularly if there's someone who's vexatious to you, then use it again and again until you come to that awareness that actually those grievances are just not worth holding on to. You actually just want to be free in your own mind. Okay then, so let's do a quick check-in, shall we? So, anyone got anything to share? Anything arising for you? Any questions? Comments on that meditation? See if everyone's still on Zoom. Kim, John. Anyone got anything to share or to ask?
Yeah, I can share.
Okay, thanks, John.
Yeah. Yeah, well, good to be with you all. I got food poisoning 3 days ago, and I'm just about recovered from it now.
Mm-hmm.
I've had very little to eat actually, and it's been quite interesting because I've had nothing to eat so far today, and I'm not actually missing it. It's quite interesting. I missed it the first day and the second day, but less so. And now I'm kind of, and I just did a 7-mile walk. Yeah. So
doing some fasting.
Yeah.
Do you feel kind of lighter and freer?
I do actually. Yeah. Not so much now that I've been sitting down for a while, but when I was walking, it was great.
Oh, no food. So interesting.
Yeah.
We need a lot less food than we think we do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's surprising.
And when you fast, it does create a kind of lightness.
Yeah.
Freedom, which is why it's been incorporated into many spiritual and religious traditions as spiritual practice.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see the advantages in it.
Yeah, I mean, in the Art of Letting Go course, I suggested doing like 12 to 16 hours a day where you just fast and then eat for 8 hours. So you get that lightness, and then at some point, the body needs sustenance. But actually, you need a lot less than you think you need.
Yeah.
I once did a 10-day fast, no food, just water. And then I went for a run on day 9. Well, I wasn't like perfectly optimal, but I managed to run for like half an hour on the beach. And I was like, okay, because your body it taps into another source of energy, it taps into your fat. So it's just like, sucks it out. So it does. You almost feel like it's like, it's the quickest way to lose weight. And then when I started eating again, it was just like, just drew everything out of that food. It was amazing. So interesting experience. And it did make me realize that, really food is, it's another one of those body things that, we think we need to do. I suppose at some point you do need food. And the Buddha apparently lived on 1 grain of rice for a few years, and that nearly killed him. Because, it was skin and bone. There's no, so then he kind of went, okay, hang on. I need to maybe not be so ascetic. And then he started, eating normally, well, relatively normally. Because he realized it wasn't about the, not eating food. It was about the inner state. But it can be helpful to get into that state, there's no doubt. Just to feel lighter and clearer, and especially if you've got like an attachment or issue with food, it can be quite helpful to. When I first started, I was like, can I really do this? And I was like, well, you do a 24-hour fast, and that was okay. It's a little bit of physical discomfort, but nothing major. Patricia, you said you've done a bit of fast recently.
Yeah, did John say you've done 3 days so far?
Yeah.
Okay. John, if you persist with this, just make sure you get your electrolytes in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
What-
your electrolytes are quite important. And you'll see it will adjust like if you get a bit of brain fog. You shouldn't have it all by day 3, but just make sure you get like some of the electrolytes in. There's a thing called snake juice which you can Google, and it's 4 different salts you can put together. You mix it in 2 liters of water, and it just keeps your electrolytes on, all depending how long you're going to do your fast for.
Okay.
But I just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, thanks. I'll check that out.
Well, just kind of go with the flow with it, John. See how long you feel like you want to continue.
Yeah.
At some point, you'll probably go, okay. It's like on day 9, I think. I was like, okay, maybe it's time to eat something.
Yeah. I won't get that far.
I was actually in Mozambique, and I just went, okay, I'm going to eat all my food, and then there wasn't really, well, you could go to the shops, but it wasn't like supermarkets and stuff. It's like, yeah, it's fine. I'm just gonna do my thing. That's great, actually. Okay, so anything else to share?
No, it's good for me.
Okay. Kim, Karen, Lisa, anything arising for you? Anything came up in that meditation?
Yeah, I'm definitely in a lighter state right now than I have been for
Week.
a number of days.
Well, I think you did last week's session. Did last Sunday session.
Yeah, I mean, doing the meditations, with the lessons on my own, okay, I have seen a bit of light. But yeah, like this doesn't last long if I've been doing it. This is long, or so far I can still feel it. Yeah, so yeah, this was really helpful. It's been difficult to try and get to that state. Really difficult with the meditate. Like to get it's just been a struggle.
Well, the struggle is part of. I mean, today's quote was interesting.
Yeah,
like without struggle, there's no strength. I think it's Oprah Winfrey. But what she's saying is, in the struggle, which is really the struggle to let go. Actually, it's a struggle to let go of your own negativity that's arising quite strongly. So it's a struggle to let go of your own ego. But only in that struggle do you really grow. It's when you're really being tested, and all of that negativity is arising. But you're like, okay, now this is where it counts. This is what forgiveness is about. It's about really letting go of that and finding peace, irrespective. You can do it in a difficult situation. Then there is a big amount of undoing that's happened with the ego. But it isn't easy. Anyone who says this is easy, okay, well, it's better. You think, and then you think, oh, I kind of got this thing taped. Of course, it's And then something happens and you triggered and you're like, right, maybe not. Still got some work to do. Because it's your own ego that's getting activated. So it's your own sense of a separate identity. See, this is why it's so difficult to forgive. Because as you forgive another, you're letting go of your own separate identity. And we're all attached to that. We think we are separate, human, in a body. We have our lives. That's our default state, isn't it? And yet he's saying, but that's not true. You're just light. Pure formless awareness is the light. There's no body, there's no personal identity. None of that exists in the light. But to get to the light, you've got to let go of your attachment to this form, body, personal identity. And that's not easy. That's an undoing of yourself, of what you thought was you. Okay, wow. It's not for the faint-hearted. But Jesus is telling us, look, this is the only way. There's no other way you're really going to find happiness and peace. As long as you stay attached to your separate identity, the ego's in charge of your mind. And you will experience pain, suffering, guilt, fear, grievances, and so on, because that's what the ego does. That's what it's made up of, those thoughts. So just keep on, Kim. That's all I can say. It's a process. And if it's difficult, know that then, well, this is a major learning experience for me. And if I can get through this, which you will, then you'll go to a higher level. There's no doubt. It's a really difficult experience, really challenging, and you really do let it go. It takes you to another level of understanding.
I think it's also just like the challenge. The one thing is, on your own meditating, trying to get to that state, but it's also being in the mix of it, where like there's like you're supposed to act on. Well, okay, there's things that require action, and then I just get very triggered by it sometimes, or I freeze on it. So it's like in the form, It's not like we're just now in the light, in the form. And that's,
well, the art of this is to stay connected to the light while you're acting in the world. And that's the miraculous state of mind, or what I call flow. And that takes some mind training, because you're talking about apparently two different opposite dimensions. The one is completely internal, just pure light, peace. There's nothing really to perceive. And the other one is about form and action, and there's other people and moving parts. Everything's moving all the time. And now, how do you stay anchored in the light while you responding to this illusion? And that's really the learning, and that's a process. It takes time to learn that. So you're only 3 months into this path. Started the Arts Letting Go course 3.5 months ago or so. Not a long time. Enlightenment is a lifetime project, though. Oh, you're right. Thanks. So just keep on. The more you practice this, the more you practice forgiveness, the more you let go, the more you start to learn this thought system, the more you connect with the light, and that's how it goes. But you need your experiences in life to teach you that. What I love about the course is not saying this is somewhere you go off and you're going to go into 20 years of meditation, silent meditation to do this. That is a path for people who've done that. he says, ultimately that will succeed because of the intention behind it. But this is actually a quicker way. Because you're in the world, you're getting rubbed up all the time by things, and then your ego arises, and then you see it, and then you've got the chance to let it go. If you're in a cave meditating, none of that's happening. You're not getting that friction. So it's a path designed for people in the world, especially this crazy modern world. And was given 50 odd years ago in New York City, which is, well, even then, it was one of the most busiest, chaotic, stressful cities. And he gave it to help us in our lives, not to run away from it. So it actually makes you very robust. It makes you invincible if you really understand this. Because whatever's happening, I can let it go. I can let it go. The choice is, do I want to let it go is the question. But you can let it go.
Well, if you end up in a confrontation or don't want to have a confrontation, but like, okay, you're maybe not in that state, but now, okay, you've forgiven yourself, but then it's just like this, maybe not in that state, but now you've got to act. What, do you forgive it afterwards? Or it's like, and then there's damage, and I don't know, it's just like a mess at the moment. Well, it'll be a mess anyway, but...
The key is to stay, if you can stay in that centered place. Okay, so there's apparently a conflict on the level of form. You might be having a conversation with someone, words are being exchanged, but can you stay in that very calm, centered state, or do you get turbulated? Does the ego start now pulling you into thoughts of anger, fear, attack, and so on? Because if you can stay in that state, whatever you say and do is going to be different. It's going to be coming from a higher place. And I'll give you a good example of that. So Jesus, in his life, there was a situation where they brought this woman, adulteress. It's documented in the New Testament. They bring in this adulteress who they've caught in the act. God knows how they did that. But anyway, they've caught, she's an adulteress, and according to the law of Moses, she must be stoned. This is the Mosaic law. So the Pharisees and the Sadducees, want to trick him. They bring her in, they haul her in. He's in front of a crowd outside the temple. He's teaching, and they say, teacher, what do you say? This woman's been caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says she should be stoned to death. What do you say? So they're trying to trick him. Because if he says, well, no, she shouldn't be, then they go, well, you defying the law of Moses, stone him. And if he says yes, then she's going to be stoned to death. And they're like, okay, well, we've got him now. And Jesus he's in his presence, he's in his power. He takes a little bit of time. He writes something in the sand, probably just to give himself time. He's probably just doodling. But it's just like, okay, let me just pause here. Don't react. And he gets up and he says one thing. And he just says, let he who's never sinned cast the first stone. And that defuses the whole situation. It's the perfect thing to say. But if he'd been out of his presence, then he could have said the wrong thing and someone could have died. She could have died. He could have died. In those days, it was like, seriously, it was the Wild West. It's like if you did something wrong, you could be stoned to death and that was it. We don't live in, the same kind of, we think the world's dangerous now, but I mean, imagine then. Then what if you didn't do the right thing? You could get crucified. Just like take you, arrest you, no trial, crucify you. So relatively, I suppose we've progressed. But anyway, I mean, just the principle of that is if you can stay calm and centered, and you can just observe. So another example I'll give you. It's just from a chap who was on the Vipassana retreat. He was actually the facilitator. At the end of it, he talked about an experience he had with his dad. And so he's, a youngish guy in his 20s, and he's kind of alternative. You can see he's got a ponytail, and he's like, wants to go meditate. And his dad probably wasn't quite on board with that. So he said his dad's standing there, and he's having like a full go. He's really angry, and he's aggressive. And he said before he did Vipassana, he would have like really gone into like freaked out state and got all contracted and defensive. But he said the training just helped him he just observed. He didn't react. So he went, okay, so observe breath, observe sensation. And he felt like heat arising in his body. And there's like, because that's what happens with strong emotion. But he's like, I'm not reacting to it because that's what the practice is. I'm just not reacting. And he said it just by staying in that. He didn't say anything. He just looked at his dad. His dad's ranting away. He said it was amazing. Just the energy just dropped. His dad eventually calmed down after a minute. He sat down, and then they were able to have a conversation. So it was like that presence that he held just changed the energy of the conversation because he wasn't reacting. And he didn't have to say anything. He did later, but in that, he just looked at him and was like, okay, I'm actually going within, observing my own emotions, my own sensation and emotion, because they go together. And just by doing that, it changed the energy of the conversation. So those are a couple of examples. I'm not saying it's easy, but if you can do that in the heat of the moment, then you will change the energy of that conversation, and the relationship will shift. No one can be angry at you if you just kind of just sitting here and I'm not reacting. It's very difficult to continue being angry.
I think also for me, I was talking to you earlier about that staff situation. I've got somebody who's all the time, and if you react wrong, obviously they can go CCMA and they can do all kinds of things. So you have to be very sort of calculated about what you do and what you say and how you do it. And one of the ways that's helping me at the moment, there's a law person who my boss has said, he said, just speak to Alan if you need any advice. And it's quite nice because I've never met Alan and he's just a remote person, so I don't know who he is. But it's quite nice because when something happens, I have to wait and I have to think about it. And I have to be polite because everything's on email or something like that. And then literally I have to park it because Alan's at CCMA or whatever. So there's no quick answer.
So it gives you this
tremendously, it's been a great learning thing for me because it's not as if I can't make a decision or anything like that, but it's allowed me to just to know that I've got support. Number two is this is not personal. You know what I mean? It's not a personal thing. I won't benefit either way. So I don't feel, you know what I mean? So it's actually been really, really interesting. And for me, it's been a very peaceful process. You know, in the past where I've gone through these things with staff, it's always, you know, you feel terrible. You feel like you're in this argument and this battle and it's horrible and you feel just dreadful all the time. But I actually feel incredibly peaceful because I've followed everything. You know what I mean? It's like I've been a gentleman.
Gentlewoman,
whatever, and I followed the thing. And at every opportunity, you can do the right thing or the wrong thing. Make a choice. Make a choice. So it's just like one of those. It's like, did you do the right thing or did you do the wrong thing? According to what we're meant to do. No, you did the wrong thing. So this is what I must do. So it's been very much like that, but there's no emotion attached to me, which is nice. And I mean, still at this point she might come back, she might not come back.
But you're equanimous.
I don't mind either way because I haven't got upset about it. And I actually feel very peaceful about it. You know, in the past, you're like, oh my God, if that person does come back to the office, it's going to be a nightmare every single day. It's going to be a nightmare because they're going to be, you know, you just feel like it's just going to be horrible. And I'm really fine with it. I'm absolutely fine with it. And it's just been quite nice, just exactly what you're saying, is that don't say anything right now. This is like you projected this. Go think on that before you answer. Why did you want this? And why, you know, you're projecting this onto someone else and somebody else has done something wrong. And you're going to be right because you're the manager. They're going to be wrong. So how does that work? And then, you know what I mean? Have you given an opportunity for somebody to be forgiven, to do it right? Would you be willing to train them? Would you be willing to put them through remedial stuff? And sometimes you're like, oh my God, you want to train someone new. But then you have to think, okay, then I have to start at the beginning and every single day do this. And it takes time and it takes energy. But it's actually been peaceful through all of that. So I'm just really just like, okay.
Well, that's brilliant. And of course, it's not saying in fact, he's saying you're going to have conflict situations in your life. He addresses it all the time. Saying it's how you respond to it.
Yeah.
So if you can stay peaceful and in a loving state and not reactive, okay, well, eventually you're doing what you're doing, but you're doing it peacefully, and there's great learning in it. You're practicing forgiveness.
Yeah.
And the reward is your peace of mind, and you'll be more effective in dealing with that situation. Because if you lose your rag, you know what happens, especially in corporate world. like things can escalate. You know, you've got legal things involved. The person feels aggrieved. They can get lawyers involved. You know, the whole thing just blows up into a
Nasty.
It can get, yeah, really nice. Whereas if you just like, if I'm calm, if I'm present, if I do the right thing, I'm unemotional about the process, maybe the right thing for this person is that they're not part of the company. It's not the right place for them. Okay, well, you know, I'm open to that. You know, I don't have an investment either way. And at every point, I'll just be guided and make the right, you know, the right choice, peacefully, calmly. So you're still going through the process in the world of whatever it is. But you're equanimous, and that's really the key in this. And it's, you know, in the Vipassana, that was really what they were teaching. Equanimity, it's the same thing. Forgiveness is equanimity. Forgiveness brings you to that equanimous state where you're like, you know, I'm not really attached one way or another. It's fine. So then I have no expectation, but I can also have no grievance because I'm not attached. It's when you get attached, you have the expectation, then a grievance arises. My expectation is not met. This person should be doing this, they're not. I have a strong attachment or investment in that, and now I suffer. Now I have the grievance because I have that strong reaction of this shouldn't be happening, and I feel unhappy. So it's just observing that, you know, that's what the ego is always trying to do. Get you into an expectation, get you nicely attached, and then create a situation where your expectation violated, then the grievance seems justified, and now you vacillating between expectation or I really like that to happen, and a grievance when it doesn't. And that's not a happy place to be in at all. And that's these teachings, the Buddhist teaching and the Course, it's so in alignment. I mean, it's really the same thing. You know, the equanimity, you know, non-attachment, whatever they want to call it, and forgiveness. It's different words. It's a mental and emotional process of letting go. The Course tends to focus quite a lot on people, forgiving people, and saying, you know, you've got this grievance. Like, how did everyone find that meditation?
Very nice.
So I'll actually send you a link. You can get it from their website.
Is it? I don't know. I heard something a long time ago where when you go through a situation, if you just think of the word stop, and then stop, S is for stop, T is taken a breath or three, O is for observe, and then proceed.
Yeah.
It's just like a quick, what do you call it? Can you
acronym?
Chopra put that on. Yeah, so that's quite nice and quick and to the point. The other thing was during my meditation, and this is just my opinion, is really before I forgive anyone else, people make this not even really important, is to give myself. Because if I forgive myself, they will be forgiven. So I don't sit and tend to forgive anyone else or a situation like that. I've got to look at the way I see it. And then from there, what my responsibility is in that, forgive myself for that. And everything else will be resolved, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, it's only really about yourself.
It's about, you know, to forgive another, what you really do is you let go of your negative thoughts and emotions about them. That's what you're doing.
But it's really your negative thoughts about yourself.
Yeah. You just project it onto them.
Yeah.
So that negativity that's got triggered by them, when you say I forgive you, you're really saying I'm willing to release that myself and not think those thoughts. And come into a state of equanimity, which is the light he's talking about, where it's like, actually I see that really we have the same awareness, and we all have the same base awareness, which was given to us by God. And
it's more subtle if you forget someone else, because then you can still kind of like get into it. Because once you start forgiving yourself, it's more like direct. And you've got a bigger pill to swallow, because if you realize you're causing your own chaos and getting it, you know.
Yeah, it's letting go of your own negativity that's been triggered. That's always the key. And that's why it's hard, because your own negativity that's been triggered by that personal situation is your ego. That's what it is. It's made up of those negative thoughts and emotions that negate light and the love. They deny that, and now you've got turbulation going on in your mind and grievance. We all know what that feels like. It feels very kind of dark and sticky and really contracted and constricted. The true forgiveness, just saying, I'm willing to let that go. I don't want to hold that feeling anymore towards anyone or anything. And in that particular situation, then you've forgiven the person if you've really done that. You find
Realizing that's got nothing to do with it.
yeah, it doesn't really. It's your own negativity that's been triggered by that.
Yeah.
And projection perception, it's ultimately your own projection. It's now giving rise to the ego. Now, the temptation is to see it as outside of you and it's someone else's fault and it's not me, but of course it's saying bring it back. No, this is me, it's my own mind, and this is showing me an aspect of my own ego, which is kind of helpful. If you interpret everything through that lens, then everything becomes a learning experience. Okay, this is an opportunity to forgive or to let go of another part of my ego. Okay, bring it on. If that's what I'm here to do, that is what it is, and that's what you're here to do. If that's what I'm here to do, then this is absolutely an essential part of the process. So we don't resist the negativity and the difficult situation. We welcome it. Okay, well, this is how I'm going to learn. So Kim, to go back to your point, this is how you're going to learn what you need to learn. So you welcome it. And I know that's really difficult in the moment. Oh yes, I'm really struggling, but bring it on. But just try it. Just try changing your perspective when you're feeling that way. Saying, okay, well, bring it on. I'm ready for this, and this is what I actually need to learn. So I'm not going to resist it, and it may not be easy to let go of these thoughts and feelings, but I'm going to keep trying. You've got a lesson every day. You've got meditations, breath breaks. Like there's many tools to help you to do it. And that's what you get to learn. It's forgiveness. So great, you've got the opportunity to learn that in that situation. So I hope that helps.
I appreciate having the tools. Yeah, it does. I think it's that, okay, you say bring it on, but it's like there's still things that need to be, I don't know, anyway, I do try and handle things in a way that I don't want to just react. That's it. It's actually, well, let's just call it my ego form. That's not in my nature. And I'm working with someone that's very opposite to that. And that's a challenge within itself. Like we chalk and cheese how we would approach things. That's a challenge within itself. And then it's like navigating this and, okay, well, sometimes maybe a wrong decision is going to be made. What are the consequences? I mean, I know that happens in life, but this is just fired up to another level. It's like with a person that's close that you know and love, and it's like they're also, I mean, they're in a bad space, but it almost feels like a lot's been pushed on to me and I don't have that capacity. And just trying to
keep remembering, it's the negativity in you that's arising that you need to let go of.
Yeah.
So if it's triggering you're getting upset, okay, this is my stuff. I need to let go of this. It's not really about them.
I'm recognizing that on level, and that's what I'm trying to do in the forgiveness meditation. But it's like I feel like there's an I mean, maybe that's, again, you say it's my own negativity, but I still feel there's this expectation put on it. I'm like,
but you don't have to accept it. See?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying
the Buddha had this experience in his life where some guy came along and deliberately tried to upset him. So he's abusing him, he's hurling all kinds of insults. Buddha just sits there, watches him. Eventually the guy's like, pauses for breath. And then he says, so he just asks him a question. He says, so if someone brings you a gift and you don't accept it, then whose gift is it? The guy says, well, I guess it would still be the giver's. He said, well, exactly. just given me all this abuse. I don't accept it. It's still yours. And the guy's like, wow, okay. Maybe I could learn from this guy. And he actually became his disciple just because he didn't react. So not saying it's easy. And like if it keeps coming at you, it's like, okay, well then it's a big forgiveness lesson because the stuff keeps arising and keeps triggering. But every time you let it go, you're letting go of another part of your ego. And that's very helpful. So it's giving you a good opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
So just keep at it. Right? So just if you keep doing that process, then you're trusting that the Holy Spirit will work out what needs to happen on the level of form. Because your responsibility is to let go in the situation. That's all you need to do. Tricia, do you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to say to Kim, hi Kim.
Hi, Patricia.
See if we can get her on camera.
I've been doing the course for a long while now. And there is this constant journey and things that are triggered within you. And you think, oh, well, I've now done all the forgiveness I need. And
just when you think that.
One day, then all of a sudden, the next thing comes up. And I've done a lot of forgiveness about my family and certain things and things that have happened. But the other day, I finished my meditation, and as I finished it, I just felt this bitterness literally well up inside of me, to the point that I felt the bitterness in my mouth, it felt like it was oozing out of me. And I realized I had all this bitterness stuck inside of me. After all these years, you go, oh my God, I still have blocks. And that's what I love about the introduction to the course. We are here to find the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And that just becomes another opportunity to forgive. You don't judge it. It's just, oh my word, look at that. I had this, all these years I've been carrying this bitterness around inside. I wasn't even aware of it till this moment. But in the same moment, there is this relief. Oh my word, I noticed it. I can now forgive it and let it go. If it comes up tomorrow, I'll do it all over again. And that's just what this journey is all about. It's about finding those blocks. It is the most precious gift we are given is to find the things that are blocking us. Because if we don't find those things, how do we ever find the light? We have the most amazing glimpses into this. There are times you're going to be doing a meditation and you're going to be so in that meditation you do not want to come out. But there will be something that will trigger you out of it. And you want to go back there, no matter how hard you try, it just doesn't happen. And then the most insignificant thing will happen that will take you right back to love's presence. And all I'm saying is, please don't judge yourself harshly. You just started with the course. And I wanted, do you know how many times the course landed in my dustbin in the first year? At least 12 times.
Once a month.
I throw it, I'm not doing this course anymore. I'm done. But tonight, Spirit has calmed me down. I go pick the book up and I read the lesson all over again. Oh, it's actually not so bad. But there have been wonderful moments when I've been irritated with people. Telkom. And in that moment, the lessons that I've learned have brought me to what I needed to say. And that's amazing. When you see those miracles begin to happen, you're going to go, this is so worth it. I might throw the book away again, but don't worry, I'll pick it up out of the dustbin and start all over again. I just want to tell you, love it. Love what comes up for you. Because those are the things that are freeing you to find that.
Thank you.
Thank
Sure.
you, Patricia, for sharing. Thank you.
So, anyone got anything else to share? Yeah.
No, I just think what Richard was saying, that every situation is an opportunity to forgive yourself, really, and to love yourself. I think, yeah? Every single opportunity. Unfortunately, we don't see it at the time.
Well, that's the training.
Yeah.
So, to be able to see it. Okay, this is just another forgiveness opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me be on my game here. This is what I'm training. This is what I'm training for. You're training your mind to do this. Not training your mind for the happy, nice times, because you don't need mind training. It's like, yeah, just go with the flow, enjoy it, and there will be those times. You're training for when, like, okay, you know, the shit's hitting the fan, yeah, and it's difficult, and I now need to respond appropriately. That's when it really counts. I mean, in like, you know, to draw an analogy in the military, they don't train them in a nice cushy way, like for when, you know, there's non-combat. They train them like, okay, we're going to make this so hard that when you go into battle, you're going to think it's easy, because, you know, that's then you're going to be able to cope. Otherwise, you're going to go in and you're just not going to be prepared. So, you know, it's all training wheels. If life is hitting you with some serious challenges, which I know is happening for a number of people, that's part of the process. You start this process. It's almost like I need to put a disclaimer on this. It's like, start the Art of Letting Go course, right? But everything is not going to be you lived happily ever after the course. No, probably what's going to happen is a whole load of stuff's going to come up that's really going to challenge you. Go, oh my God, what's happened? My life's falling apart. But actually, what you're doing is you're letting go of a whole lot of stuff that really wasn't serving, and that needed to happen. And so, because you were willing to undertake this journey, you know, you chose to go, all right, I want to do this. Then Spirit's like, okay, you're ready now. So, you know, let the games begin. This is what it's about. And all of your stuff's going to come up, and you're going to get challenges.
The thing is, do not value what is valueless, isn't it?
Oh.
And every single time that I think about that, I think of that. It's, you know, do not value what is valueless. And every time I think, oh, but then I'll say, do not think of that. Okay. Sorry. Forgot. So that's every single thing that I sort of think about those things. It's like, this is your imagination, and don't value things that are valueless. And that actually can take everything. So unfortunately, it means your children, it means your job, it means your health, it means your money, it means everything, really. I mean, if you take it down as harshly as that, I mean, it means everything. Your country.
Whatever's happening in the world on the level of form, if Jesus is saying it's all illusion, then none of it's of ultimate value. The only value it has is what you see with love. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
The only value anything has is if you look on it with love, and you feel that love and you feel that connection. That's the value the world has. That's the real world. He's saying, well, this is what you're here to do, is just translate your misperceptions, egoic misperceptions, into love. So you perceive everything with love. Well, that's, you know, the theory is great, but to actually do that is it's a lifetime's work. That one simple, you know, translation from fear to love. So, any other thoughts? Anyone? Karen? And is Lisa still with us? I think Lisa's dropped off. John shared. Karen, anything to share?
No, I'm just enjoying listening. Thank you.
Do not value what is valueless. Yeah. So these principles are applicable. I know what's going on in your life. You don't have to talk about it, but you know, it's all the same stuff. And I think it's helpful just to know that you know, you're not alone in this. Everyone's going through stuff.
Exactly.
A lot of people just don't talk about it, but everyone is going through stuff. And I think, you know, more so in the last year and a half since COVID started, I think it's just been a catalyst for a lot of unwinding, really, a lot of undoing of the ego. I think we're going through a planetary-wide transformation, and that And that obviously it involves individual by individual. Every person is going to be having shifts, changes, and often that shows up as challenges. And that's how we transform together. So I guess that leads us quite nicely into the next topic, which I wanted to talk about. So just to give you a bit of background, I recently listened to a podcast, which I'll actually bring up. We might listen to a few minutes of it, from an organization called the Circle of Atonement. And I actually just did a meditation from them that was put out by them, a guy called Robert Perry, who's the founder, put that together. So, they put out some good stuff. But I listened to this particular podcast, which was on the course's take on vaccines, which is obviously a pretty topical issue, given what's happened over the last 18 months, and that now vaccines have been rolled out en masse around the world. There's vaccine passports being introduced, so kind of a very topical issue, really. What's just happened? Zoom just expired. All right, it's all good. So let me just see if I can get back in there. Yeah, thank you. The topic. Okay, so we're back. Screen sharing has stopped. All right. Sorry, I just went away there for a bit. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I can. Sure.
Great. Sorry, Zoom just sort of collapsed there a bit. Let's go back into screen sharing mode. I think Chrome also collapsed. It's all good. So just to continue what I was saying, this was a podcast that was put out where they were discussing this issue of vaccines and saying, well, what's the guidance that the course gives? And they talked about mostly some very specific guidance that was given in the early days of the course scribing. So if you know the history of the course, there was Helen started scribing it in 1965, and Bill Thetford, who was her boss, helped her to type it up. So she would write it by longhand, and then she'd take in the notes to him, and then she'd read them to him, and he would type them up. And so that's how the course began. So there was this this collaborative process between them that was going on. And in the very early days of the course, I think it was November of 1965, which is just the start of winter in the US. And so Bill had this concern about vaccinations. It was the flu season was coming. He was like, well, should I have a flu shot or not? And Jesus addressed that in the Urtext. Because he was talking to Helen and Bill, and he talked about this particular situation, and he gave some guidance on it. And so what they were talking about in this podcast was that guidance, and then they extrapolated that guidance to 50 odd years later and said, oh, well, this then is the course's guidance on the matter. And I just thought the whole thing was a little bit one-sided. They hadn't actually considered some very pertinent guidance that actually is in the main course, because this all got edited out. The Urtext was the original manuscript, and then it got edited out in the first edition, so it didn't make it in. And there's a reason why it was edited, because it was guidance given specifically to Helen and Bill in life situations that were presenting themselves. So that's the background of it. So I think let's just have a little listen to this. I'm going to kind of go in about 10 minutes into it, and they start talking about the this particular instance, which we can discuss. But what was interesting is that they ignored some direct guidance in the actual text. It's in the lessons itself. Jesus actually gives very specific guidance, which was never mentioned in the podcast. Okay, so where are we? Let's see if we can get this going. I'm going to share my screen again. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Anything out there that we've heard before. So much of what I'm hearing, what we see.
So let's.
Right. It's a basic principle in the course that we are personally responsible for our experience, and that we have free choice. And so it seems like the natural position to extrapolate from that is I should not let the government encroach upon my freedom. But my experience is that whenever we decide these specific issues by trying to access and apply what we think is the right course principle, we usually go awry. And one of my favorite examples of that is with holy relationships. If you ask course students if holy relationships take one or two or what they are, my experience is people say either what they've heard or they say what they think that term must mean in light of the course's overall thought system, when instead they can just open the book to the relevant parts and read for themselves what the course actually says about this.
Okay.
And so it doesn't work in my experience.
Just note that, because saying you can read what the course actually says, which it does. It's got very specific guidance. We'll get to that. You don't actually have to go to the Urtext. There's made it into the main workbook. So I found that kind of interesting. But let's continue. This is Robert Cherry.
I can access my general understanding, find the right principle, apply it, and settle this specific issue.
And yet that's what we see so much in relation to COVID and other things all over the place. It's not actually looking at what the course itself says, and yet we hear so much about quote unquote what the course says, when it's really just personal opinion that's being put out there as course teaching.
You can almost generate whatever position you want from the course or from the Bible just by picking the principle that you think backs you up.
Okay, just pause there. Which is really interesting. It's true, actually, because perception makes your reality. So you choose whatever you want to focus on. But that's exactly what they've done here. They've taken a particular area of the course, which is in the Urtext. They focused on that, and they've ignored some other direct guidance about this issue, which is in the workbook. Okay, let's continue.
Yeah, I've been telling you, and I'm sure we've seen it out there, just sheer lunacy that is being proclaimed to be channeling from the author of the course. And so it's amazing how much the book itself applies to our lives if we just look to the book for the teachings and follow what the book itself says. Most of the time you can find that Jesus is speaking directly to an issue that we face with wisdom that is so profound and so deeply meaningful, and it doesn't sound like anything out there that we've heard before. So much of what I'm hearing on YouTube and whatnot just sounds like the ravings of general conspiracy theories, but you put Jesus told me on it, and all of a sudden it's supposed to rise to the level of spiritual authority. And the real spiritual authority here should be the book itself, because there is so much wisdom there if we just turn to it.
Yeah, although we'll be turning to something that hardly anybody knows about because it's not in the course itself. But
right. So let me get there. So the biggest reason that we are here today is to obviously share specific guidance that Helen received from Jesus on 3 separate occasions as to whether Bill should get a flu shot. As I mentioned in the opening, we brought this out about a year ago to speak to how to respond to the COVID pandemic as it was just emerging. We hosted a gathering, and we also provided an article about it that Robert wrote in our article library at circleofa.org. But again, this guidance is even more relevant now when addressing the issue of a vaccine, because that is precisely what about should he get a vaccine. So again, before we get into the guidance, I should just reiterate that this is from Helen's notebooks. It doesn't appear in the course itself. So Robert, do you want to walk us through the guidance that Helen?
Yeah, sure. And I just think we are incredibly lucky to have guidance from the author of the course. It was taken down right next to things that are in the course proper that so directly applies. I mean, it is uncanny in how much it speaks to the issues of our day in particular over 50 years later. Okay, so here is the guidance. As you just said, Helen received this guidance about Bill getting a flu shot on 3 separate occasions. So it's interesting that it keeps cropping up in the early dictation during the miracle principles in chapter 1 of the text. So after principle 18, he said, discuss Giovanni, and we don't know who Giovanni was, very frankly with him, meaning with Bill, including the flu shot. So this means also discuss the flu shot very frankly with him. And be sure to tell him I did kiss him on the forehead and am kissing him again now. It's really a sweet line. Okay, after miracle principle 22, topic comes back and Jesus says, ask Bill's help for guidance about the flu shots. It sounds like they're seeking guidance about flu shots and Bill's supposed to be involved with that. But be sure to tell him not to let fear enter into the consideration. Okay. It's interesting.
So note that, not to let fear enter into the consideration. Okay? So Jesus is saying fear is not something we should be honored. Does it actually make it in there?
I just have to find it.
Yeah.
I do remember reading it.
Part 18, point 18, and then point 24. Because I've got the version that I got on the internet, and it doesn't make it into that version. They obviously cut those bits out. Anyway, we'll continue because he's reading it. That's why I just thought it's helpful, because I couldn't find it.
And most important bit of this guidance, though, came after miracle principle 35. So after 18, after 22, and now after 35. And here's what it says. 1 now and a booster if there is an epidemic. Dr. Damrosch and Dr. Wise agree on this. So Helen remarks, she adds a note in the Urtext that says, Helen Schucman meeting with Dr. Wise and Dr. Damrosch, Dr. D permitted an opportunity for questioning in his capacity as chairman of the flu board for asking about Bill's flu shot. That's Helen giving us some context. Then Jesus steps in and says, P.S. This was an example of how miracles should work. You, meaning Helen, did not jump into the question yourself. And even though you did rush to the phone on Red's advice, you exerted no pressure on Bill's reluctance. Bill was apparently reluctant to come to the phone while she was rushing to the phone. Then he finishes with this really important comment. This gave me a chance to let you leave it to the real expert whom I sent to answer the question.
Okay, so there's a lot going on here. And so we thought we would just take it point by point. First of all, this isn't our first point, but as you were reading that, I was just really struck, as I think you were, by the idea that Jesus was kissing Bill on the forehead and he's doing it now. It makes you wonder how often this is happening to us without our awareness. And it's a sweet idea to think about.
It's a beautiful line. Oh, sorry, I missed the last thing you said.
Oh, did I cut out?
Yeah, it makes me wonder.
It's a sweet idea to think that Jesus is kissing us on the forehead.
Yeah,
without our awareness.
it is. It absolutely.
But more relevant to the situation today is Jesus says, do not let fear enter into the consideration. So how should we take that?
Well, I think that's something that all course students could agree on. It's a key central issue here, but that doesn't automatically mean that you act like there's nothing to be done. You can take action without fear, right? Lack of fear doesn't mean you just sit there. So you can still not let fear enter in and also take action, which is exactly what Jesus will go on to advise here.
And this is where we always, in Course Companions classes and whatnot, are talking about the wonderful guidance in I Need Do Nothing section, where you are instructed to take action in the world. It says that you will be sent on busy doings, but you can do that from the quiet center of the Holy Spirit and God within you. And so it's not anti-action, it's just action from that peaceful place. And it feels like that's applicable here.
Yeah, so stillness and fearlessness and peace can actually be completely joined with action.
Right. So you take action, but it's the way in which you're taking action. Are you taking action from that place of anxiety or fear, or are you taking action from that calm, quiet center where God dwells within?
Yeah.
So he also says in this guidance that Jesus is working through healthcare experts. And that feels really obviously relevant to our time right now as well. We're wondering who we can listen to. And so it's interesting that Jesus is speaking through healthcare experts.
Yeah, just to draw out what is implied in those lines we read, they've been wondering about this issue of should Bill get a flu shot? And then Helen has some kind of opportunity to get on the phone with Dr. Damrosch, who is the chairman of the flu board, which I assume was part of the New York State Department of Health, which is still existent, of course. And another doctor, Dr. Wise, and she's able to ask Dr. Damrosch, what should Bill do? She gets an answer. And then afterwards, Jesus says, I sent him to you to give you the answer. So Dr. Damrosch is acting, he's the chairman of the flu board, and he's acting, I'm sure unwittingly, as a messenger for Jesus to Helen and ultimately Bill.
Yeah, there's two things that brings up for me. Obviously, the importance of I sent him, and
Right.
And also, we forget sometimes how really successful and influential Helen and Bill were in their respective fields. For Helen to get the chairman of the flu board on the phone is
Right.
pretty impressive.
I was talking to the chairman of the flu board just the other day.
Right. It's like that.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it there. Because that kind of, I don't know if you found it in the Urtext. I think they cut it out, honestly, because I've got a version online. And that doesn't make it in there. So it didn't include, well, in the version I got online, it didn't include any of that commentary. So, they obviously have the original, non-edited. So it didn't make it into the course, didn't even make it into the Urtext. It didn't make it into the course proper. And there's a good reason for that, because it's very specific guidance for that particular situation. What they carry on doing, we don't have time to listen to the whole thing, is they say, well, this is very significant. This is some kind of message to us 50 years later with the pandemic. This is giving us, specific guidance on the pandemic, i.e., listen to the healthcare experts, take the shot. But I think they're misinterpreting the entire situation, and they're going, it now has some kind of overall, specific, it's some kind of overall generalized guidance for this situation many years later. When in fact, what Jesus was doing was he was training Helen and Bill in miracle working. This was what it was about. The details of, the flu shot and the expert showing up and whatever was actually secondary to the point of he's trying to train them in this miracle-minded way of thinking. And he's trying to say to Helen, look, this is an example of miracles, because you didn't get upset, you didn't try and impose your will on Bill. He was reluctant, but you just kind of let go and you let me handle it. And so it was a training exercise. And it was about, remember, this was in the early days of the course, it was about getting their trust. He wanted them to trust him more and more so that, they could complete their assignment, because he knew what was before them, 7 years of, pretty intense work on this book. So that's, for me, that's what was going on. It wasn't any kind of generalized guidance of like, well, Jesus is saying we should all take flu shots. It was very specific to that situation, to those two individuals who were in this process of starting to learn this new way of thinking. And Jesus said, well, I can use any situation. So you've got some fear. He understood that Bill had some fear around the flu. So he said, okay, well, it's probably too soon to jump you into the deep end of like, okay, none of this is true. So I'll work with that, and I'll just show you that actually I can help you even with these very specific questions. And I'll send an expert to give you the guidance, which is gonna make you feel at ease. It's gonna make you feel more comfortable. And that was what he was trying to achieve there. He even says here, let's just bring it up. And this is chapter 2, section 4 of the text, which is healing as released from fear. So it's also pretty early in this whole scribing. It's probably a few months later in this whole process. And given the context of what he just said, this now makes a lot of sense that he would say this to them. Because what he says is, maybe someone else can read that actually. Can you all see the screen?
I'm happy to read it.
Okay, yeah, just from the top of the paragraph, all material means.
All material means that you accept as remedies for bodily ills are restatements of magic principles. This is the first step in believing that the body makes its own illness. It is a second misstep to attempt to heal it through non-creative agents. It does not follow, however, that the use of such agents for corrective purposes is evil. Sometimes the illness has a sufficiently strong hold over the mind to render a person temporarily inaccessible to the atonement. In this case, it may be wise to utilize a compromise approach to mind and body, in which something from the outside is temporarily given healing belief. This is because the last thing that can help the non-right-minded or the sick is an increase in fear. They are already in a fear-weakened state. If they are prematurely exposed to a miracle, they may be precipitated into panic. This is likely to occur when upside-down perception has induced the belief that miracles are frightening.
Okay, so there's quite a lot in that. Let's just unpack it. Did anything strike you about that paragraph? Anyone?
Well, when the food poisoning hit me 3 days ago, I just felt so rough that I remember saying to myself, well, just think, Don, this is just a bodily experience. Let it go. And the last thing I could do in the world was kind of hold on to that statement because I just felt so rough.
Yeah, well, it can be challenging. The body seems to be a very persistent reality. What he's speaking to, the main point here related to what we're talking about starts at point 5, sentence 5, where he says, no, 4 actually, it does not follow, however, that the use of such agents for corrective purposes is evil. So he's saying it's a first step in believing that the body makes its own illness. Okay, it is to start from the beginning. All material means that you accept as remedies for bodily ills are restatements of magic principles. Okay, so any remedy that you accept for any kind of bodily ill. So we're talking about medicine, even alternative medicine. Any agent that you're going to use is a restatement of a magic principle. What you're saying is that some form of magic in this world is going to help me. It's going to heal me. This is the first step in believing that the body makes its own illness. So you then believe the body has some kind of autonomy. The body is making the illness, and the body can then be treated on that level. This is really the foundation of Western medicine, allopathic medicine, which they're starting to revise. They're starting to realize that the mind does play a huge part, but the system is still very much set up around healing bodily ills with magic agents. And he says there's a second misstep to attempt to heal it through non-creative agents. It does not follow, however. So, in other words, if you're using magic to try and heal the body, anything on the level of form, it's another misstep. You're basically making the body real by taking that second step. A non-creative agent is something that's not of the Holy Spirit. That's what he means. Okay? Creation is the Holy God or the Holy Spirit, and non-creative is the ego. It does not follow, however, that the use of such agents for corrective purposes is evil. Okay, so here Jesus is cutting us a little bit of slack. He's saying, okay, so sometimes the illness has a sufficiently strong hold over the mind to render a person temporarily inaccessible to the atonement or the at-one-ment. Right? So sometimes someone is so fixated in their belief that they're a body, that they need whatever it is to help them, that the atonement is not accessible to them. And that actually is the case with a lot of people. So saying, in this case, it may be wise to utilize a compromise approach to mind and body, which something from the outside is temporarily given healing belief. So saying, in a situation like that, what you actually want is to try and help the person to heal. And so if you give them an agent and it helps them to get somewhat better, then maybe they can start working on their mind, because that's the real aspect. But in that fear-weakened state, as he said, this is because the last thing that can help the non-right-minded or the sick is an increase in fear. So if it's going to increase their fear, then it's not going to be very helpful to them. So he's saying, look, this is a temporary expedient in the whole plan of the atonement, ultimately, is to use this non-creative agent temporarily. They're already in a fear-weakened state. If they're prematurely exposed to a miracle, they may be precipitated into panic. This is likely to occur when upside-down perception has induced the belief that miracles are frightening. So really what he's speaking to here is the person who is sick, saying you're already sick, and if you're in such a fear-weakened state, you've got such an investment in your illness, for someone to come and say to you, well, you just need to forgive us, and none of it's really real, give it all to the Holy Spirit, they're just going to go, what are you talking about? Because their mind is just not ready to accept that.
The other part is that sometimes
We've lost you, Jono. Don't know whether you can hear anything.
I can hear you, John, but yeah, it seems that we've lost Jono.
Yeah. You sound as though you're suffering a bit, Kim.
Well, from the sounds of things, probably not nearly as much as many other people, but I think it's just really testing me, I suppose. But also just like, yeah, I think there's just, I think there's just a lot of, I suppose it just brings up stuff from before, and the people involved has also just probably brought up so much stuff. And it's just a crazy mess, and no one wants, yeah. People involved, like there's some who want to talk and resolve and some who don't, and then that creates a conflict within itself, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it's just happening, it's like, and then it creates real anxiety for the person who does want to talk, like try and resolve it. And yeah, just a lot of sense of loss at the moment, and this at the moment estrangement, and it's just, yeah, it's creating a challenge.
Well, I hope it gets easier for you.
Thank you, John. Just have to keep working at it, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just, the challenge is just, it's like, again, trying to say, on being faced with things on form, and you're not necessarily in that state, or certainly I'm most of the time not in that state. You know.
And I think sometimes with the relationships, it just takes a long time to work through. Especially if the other person isn't of like mind, you know, if they're just completely lost in worldly, egoic things.
I think it's just, there's so much deep stuff there. The person's done a lot of work, or the person I'm connected to has done a lot of like work over many years. So it's all like family stuff mostly, but then it just keeps coming up, and I think they want to see justice, and that was like the push. And then now it's like this, now it's like no one was talking to them, or they don't want to get involved, and it's just creating more and more and more anxiety. And then I'm kind of hearing about it, but kind of, well, I'm also being asked to then like get involved where I don't think, it doesn't feel right, and that's what I'm trying to work out. And I'm generally a person who doesn't want to get involved. That's the other challenge. That's my own challenge. Anyway, it's complicated. The ego complicates things, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope it smooths out.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
This too will pass.
Yeah, that's also what I'm trying to share, and it doesn't. Yeah.
I'm back. We're back. So
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
You just logged out there. So I was just saying, to summarize the last 2 minutes, that this particular bit of guidance, I'll go back into now and share my screen, is actually quite specific, again, to a situation where someone is already ill, and they're in a fear-weakened condition, as he calls it. They're quite attached to their illness, and to say to them, well, just forgive it all, the body's not really real, none of this is really happening, is probably not going to work. So he's saying, well, temporarily, this non-creative agent may be helpful in a situation like this, because it's if you prematurely expose them to a miracle, they may be precipitated into panic, because the entire thought system is under threat. So again, it's pretty specific to a case where someone already has an illness, and Jesus is saying, well, this might be appropriate to help them somewhat to heal. It doesn't mean that it applies to taking a vaccine when you're perfectly healthy to prevent an apparent illness. That is not the context of the guidance. You see that? Yes. Whereas Robert Perry and Emily Bennington just took this section and said, well, Jesus is basically saying therefore that using non-creative agents is okay. But it's very specific to a situation where someone is already sick, they already feel weak, and they're not ready to accept atonement. And so actually using something like a magic agent might be kind of helpful to get them into a state where maybe their body's a bit healthier, and maybe then the mind training can start. So again, very context specific for a particular situation. Doesn't mean that it's a general principle. So then pretty much the rest of that podcast, they go on and talk about that guidance that it didn't even make it into the Urtext, which is interesting. It's not in your version either. So it didn't even make it into the Urtext. It's like the original manuscript that they wrote, which obviously then got cut out, that got edited. I didn't know there wasn't editing. I thought it was just verbatim, but obviously some of it has got taken out for a reason, because it was very context specific for that situation, for those two in that situation. It wasn't necessarily meant to be general guidance. And the danger of this is you go, oh, well, because the course says that in a specific instance, now it's generally applicable. What Robert Perry said is, well, when we try and apply general principles, we go right, rather than looking at the specifics in the course, which to a point I agree with. But then the interesting thing is they didn't actually look at the specific guidance that actually made it into the course. In the whole 45-minute podcast, you would have thought they might have brought it up. So I'm going to bring it up because it's very pertinent. In lesson 76, workbook lesson 76, if you want to have a look at that. So he talks about, there we go. So paragraph 3. Maybe, Robin, do you want to read that first?
Let me find it first.
Lesson 76, yeah.
Yes. You can start if you want.
Okay. So someone else can start. Maybe Kim, do you want to read paragraph 3 for us?
Can you scroll to paragraph 3? Thanks.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Think of
the freedom in the recognition that you are not bound by all the strange and twisted laws that you have set up to save you. You really think that you would starve unless you had stacks of green paper strips and piles of metal discs? You really think a small round pellet or some fluid pushed into your veins through a sharpened needle will ward off disease and death? You really think that you are alone unless another body is with you?
Okay, so there is a very specific guidance, right? Do you really think a small round pellet, talking about pills, or some fluid pushed into your veins through a sharpened needle, I mean, this is direct, specific about vaccinations, right, will ward off disease and death, right? He's naming it absolutely clearly. This is an example of what not to do. He's saying it is insanity that thinks these things. You call them laws and put them under different names in a long catalogue of rituals that have no use and serve no purpose. You think you must obey the, quote, laws of medicine, of economics, and of health. Protect the body and you will be saved. And then he carries on. Trisha, do you want to read that? These are not laws.
Which lesson is it? 19?
76. These are not laws, but madness. Paragraph 5.
Paragraph 5. 76.
Yeah,
Lesson 76.
correct. Shall I ask someone else to?
It's not in this book.
Really? Okay, so Karen, do you want to read paragraph 5 for us? Okay, Karen's not there.
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. Okay. You want to read number paragraph 5 for us?
Yeah, sure. These are not laws, but madness. The body is endangered by the mind that hurts itself. The body suffers just in order that the mind will fail to see it is the victim of itself. The body's suffering is a mask the mind holds up to hide what really suffers. It would not understand its own enemy, that it attacks itself and wants to die. It is from this your laws would save the body. It is for this you think you are a body.
Okay, so I mean, it's pretty clear. Then maybe just read paragraph 6 and you find it.
There are no laws except the laws of God. This needs repeating over and over until you realize it applies to everything that you may have made in opposition to God's will. The magic has no meaning. What it is meant to say does not exist. Only what it is meant to hide will save you.
Okay. And then Robin, if you can read number 7.
And 134.
The laws of God can never be replaced.
The laws of God be replaced. We will devote today to rejoicing that that is so. It is no longer a truth that we would hide. We realize instead it is a truth that keeps us free forever. Magic imprisons, but the laws of God because there are no laws.
Okay, so let's stop there because then he goes into practice. For me, that's absolutely crystal clear. I don't know how much clearer you want it. He's telling us absolutely in a lesson that there are no laws but God's, and he even gives an example, a specific example of vaccinations, saying this is insanity that thinks these things, and you think this is going to save you, but actually it's not. And yet the extraordinary thing is, as these are advanced course students, and Robert Perry's been doing this since the 1980s, they ignored it.
So then if we think of one step further than what it is, which as you say, is there's some seemingly knowledgeable people who are ignoring it. What is the learning for us then?
Well, the learning really is that you need to have discernment.
Well, exactly. So maybe the learning is that no matter how long somebody's been doing something, doesn't mean they know what they're doing.
No, exactly.
So,
and go direct. He even says it. Go directly to the course, to the specific guidance in the course, because he actually addresses a lot of practical issues in the course. So if there's guidance there, go to it. They didn't do that. It's there in a lesson, and they completely ignored it in the entire podcast.
But don't you think it goes to the bigger? I mean, my interpretation of this suddenly in my mind is that this herd fear, this global fear, where people are being clustered together and being made to be afraid, is to not be afraid. You're becoming sort of like a loner. You know what I mean? Because you can't talk about it to anybody. I mean, if you tell anybody your views of it and you're not following it, everybody's. So from my perspective,
no, well, I know I have a family, and they will think I'm, some kind of rebel.
Yeah. So that's the point. Is that I think that, as with anything, that if you say to be honest with you, I've got that husband like Patricia's that says, "Don't drink the Kool-Aid."
Yes.
You know?
Also,
you can't say anything really from this book in mainstream because people think you're some kind of crackpot. And that's I don't mind that because I'm happy that it brings me peace. But what it boils down to is that just like when you opened up, you were saying that in biblical times you would have been stoned for heresy if you said X or you said Y. And unfortunately, talking about the vaccine or COVID is heresy at the moment. You have to discoveries. If you want to work for Discovery, you have to have the injection, right? If you want to work in some companies, you have to have the injection. If I want to visit my son, I have to have the injection. So this is where it's actually a huge mind training session, because in the past you could still leave your job or go sit in a farm in Moy River and go off grid and I don't know, eat fungus out the wood or something, you know, to be in corporate or whatever. But like this is a bigger thing. And I think it's just about the sort of global insanities really becoming more real. I don't know, for me anyway.
I agree with you. I think the thing is that does it really matter if you have to have the injection?
I don't think it does really.
Because it's still your choice in whatever you do. What you eat, what you don't eat, whether you do this practice or that practice, it always boils down to choice. So I truly believe, from having studied the course, that any illness is made from, is in the mind. There's no doubt. And I have psoriasis and arthritis, and I know that I am the sole creator of that. But at the same time, I also know I alone can make the choice as to what's going to happen. Whether I have the injection there. But I don't think that what I decide to do should impact anybody else. And their opinion shouldn't impact me. It is a sole individual choice. And if you want to go with the herb, by all means do that. If you don't want to go with the herb, that's fine too. You don't have to have the injection. No one's forcing you.
Well,
but the problem is the world is forcing us because they say you can't go overseas, you can't get in the aeroplane, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't go here, you can't go there without the vaccination. If this is all an illusion, why is it bothering all of us so much?
That's the point.
That's the point I'm trying to make. If this, for years, we have to pay taxes. Do any of us argue about the point of having to pay taxes, or that we have to be buried in a box, or that whatever it is, we're wasting so much valuable energy fighting over something that really doesn't make any difference in our lives, whether we have it or we don't, or whatever we choose. But what I really choose is, where does my peace of mind go to? And let me have the injection if it's going to cause my family to have peace, my co-workers to have peace, and I can get on with the rest of my life and not be bothered about whether I had the injection or not. Really, it boils down, what brings me peace in all of this?
No, I think that's true as well. So it's not, for me, it's not about the conspiracy theory or whatever, because it's whatever is out there is illusion. So like you say, is in your mind, whatever's happening out there is the illusion. And I agree with you, is that if I want to visit my son, I'll have it. I don't think I'll get sick and die from it. I mean, I'm going to die anyway. I'm dying as every second ticks by, I'm getting closer to whenever I'm dying. So, but I think that I agree with you. I think that it's the same about the health supplements and the pills and stuff. You know what I mean? If you take a pill for your heart attack or whatever, some people might not take the pill. Some people don't even know they've got cancer, and they've got cancer. So I agree with you. I think that it's the when you change in front of the wall and you see the shadows dancing. You know that Greek.
Yes.
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah. So I think it's all that.
Plato's cave.
It's Plato's cave. I think it's more of the dancing shadows on the wall.
Well, I mean, for me, the issue is, I'll give my take on it. The issue is not so much about vaccine, no vaccine. It's saying you don't have the choice, and that's what's really problematic.
But we don't have the choice, like Patricia was saying, to pay tax.
Well, so that's another part of a control system. It's a whole system. But eventually, what happens with tyrannies is they go, you have no choice to practice the course. You can't have freedom of belief because this is not acceptable anymore. So that's where this leads. If you allow it. And you don't, if you look in history, actually individual rights, although there is no individual, but the idea of individual free will is primary to this, because you need to be able to make your own choices. And if someone is forcing you to make those choices, then you have no freedom to make the choice for the spirit or the ego. You seem to be controlled by the ego. And so these group egos, this kind of collective, like, well, the vaccine is the right thing to do. And there's a whole belief system that is covertly and overtly forcing people. I mean, some people are like, well, if I want a job, I have to have this.
No, but what about then the point of forgiveness? Forgive them for they know not what they do.
No, but that doesn't mean you have to agree with it.
But objecting to it, doesn't it give energy to it and make it more real?
Well, that's interesting. Because if you look at Jesus as our teacher, look at his life. very peaceful life pretty much, but he did one thing, he did one act of seemingly violent protest. He went into the temple and he turned the tables over. And a lot of people have been very confused by that. They go, well, why did he do that? You know, he was the Prince of Peace. It's like, why would he do that? There was an act of protest, there was an act of civil disobedience, but he did it. You know, that's recorded in history. So why did he do that? Because I think he felt that that system was so wrong that something needed to be done to demonstrate that it was wrong, that the system was not going to free people's minds. In fact, it was going to enslave them. And so he felt called to do it. I believe he did it from his, you know, his inspiration, his Holy Spirit said, you need to do this, you're taking a stand, and you're showing people, look, this is not correct, this is wrong. And this thought system that goes with it, which is still with us today, I mean, the financial system governs the world. Yeah. Nothing's really changed. He was saying this is wrong. You must choose between God and mammon. And he took a stand, and he got crucified for it, which was then part of his, you know, his lesson and his teaching to the world. But you know, in that end, he wasn't passive. He said, no, I'm gonna take a stand for what I know to be right, and I'm going to demonstrate that in my actions. So he wasn't saying just let this continue and do nothing. He actually did something very, you know, violent which is interesting. Why would someone who's totally connected and surrendered do that? Because sometimes you need to take action. What would you, I mean, let's take an instance, you know, and John, we discussed this the other day. You said, well, what about Hitler? I mean, that's a big quandary. Okay, so you got this guy, he's a psychopath, clearly, he's a megalomaniac. You try and forgive and appease, because they did that for a number of years. It didn't work. The guy's coming to like attack you. He's going to impose this thought system, this Nazi thought system, which is really evil, dark. I mean, what else can you call it? And if he conquers your country, he's going to impose that on you. You're going to have to think the same way. And those laws are now going to become your laws. You're going to have to accept them, whether you like it or not. So what do you do in that instance? Do you just forgive and do nothing? Or do you say, well, something's got to be done? And actually, I believe we're dealing with the same thought system. It's just not happening as, you know, 80 years ago, it was like tanks and panzers rolling across Europe and war. It's not, but it's the same mindset. It's now, they're going, well, that didn't really work too well, because if you overtly attack, then people will defend. They'll go, right, we've got to fight. But if you do it covertly, and you do it via like this, the means of the media and a virus and so on, what you're really doing is you're controlling their minds, and you're making the population into a very compliant, submissive population who will then accept the next thing, because they've accepted one thing. So why won't we accept the next thing? And the next thing, and the next thing. And that's how tyranny works.
I hear what you're saying.
That's how the ego works.
But I just keep trying to go back to saying, this is all happening in my mind. There is no them.
No. So it's your own ego. It's your own ego. This is a collective projection of our egos now coming at us from the seemingly external world. So this is the world's collective projection.
And we can only deal with our ego. I can't deal with anyone else's.
No, you can.
How do I mean, I've got to deal with my ego.
When you forgive your ego, you forgive everyone's ego.
Yeah. So surely, in like what Patricia said, is forgiving something means that it doesn't matter if they choose to inject me. You know, whether they put you in a concentration camp or not, your mind was still free. But you know, a lot of those people said that. So although there was Hitler and all those, surely the guy in the concentration camp could still have peace. In his mind, he had peace. What he did to his body. Yeah,
that's true, but that doesn't mean you should just go, all right, we do nothing, and we just allow that to happen, because this is not necessarily saying take no action. It's saying taking inspired action. No, so what should you do about it? In fact, what they're asking you to do is something active. They're asking you to actually go, show up, have them like actually just do nothing. Would be like, well, I'm doing nothing. Well, I don't have to do anything because there's nothing to fear.
Well, you see, I don't know. I'm just saying, as somebody who hasn't been vaccinated.
No, neither have I.
I need to ask you a question. If everything that's happened in the world has served a purpose, we don't understand this purpose Hitler served. We don't understand what the First World War served. We don't even know what the Romans served. And I love that line in the Course in Miracles. It says you can't judge anything in time unless you knew everything from the moment time began till the moment it ended. Then you can judge it. And we can only judge it at the end. But if everything is serving a purpose and we don't understand how in the world's name this could have happened, but it is serving a purpose, we don't understand it, then why are we fighting and resisting and making such a song and dance with it? And the more we resist, the greater the problem gets, because we all know the line, what you resist persists. So when I forgive and say, okay, I'm going to have my vaccine, I'm going to do it. No, it's nothing serious. It might affect my body for a few days. I might feel tired. I might run a fever. I might have any of the side effects. But it's just something I'm doing because without it, I can't move on. But that war, that first, second world, third, whatever wars there are, they're serving a purpose. We don't actually understand why. My husband loves history. I think I know more about the Second World War and the First World War and everything in between, and the wars in the Huns had and the Hannibal had. And I say to him tonight, I can't watch another war program tonight. I'm done. We can watch anything else, but not war. I'm done with it. And then I go, but you watch this 3 times. No, I haven't. No, don't worry, not tonight.
Let's do sex and drugs.
Exactly. But the point that I'm trying to say is, if God, in his wisdom, cannot make a mistake, why are we fighting this? Because he can't make a mistake. Because if he makes a mistake, then all of us are for nothing. Not one of us mean anything to God. And all I'm saying is, fight it, forgive it. Imagine if all of us forgave Corona.
If you truly forgave it, why would you do anything about it? Why would you take a vaccine?
It
doesn't exist.
Imagine how we could help the rest of the world.
And I believe that's the purpose
And
of
I
all of
think
this,
that's
is to awaken
but
people.
To resist and start fighting it and having a million rallies, and what is the point? Because none of them have ever served any purpose. And as Sister Teresa said, when they said, will you have a rally with us about the war? She said, no, have a rally about the peace. I'll be there. Exactly. Let's have a rally about health. Let's have a rally about peace. Let's have a rally about joining together. But I think that this is completely, I think we're just allowing the fear to overtake us. And from this moment, I'm going to say, I will not let the fear. I choose peace instead of the fear that's going with Corona. Every moment.
The truth of the matter is, if it really doesn't exist, if this is a creation of our minds, if everyone simply let it go and said this simply isn't real, there's no effect, and gave it no power at all, it would disappear.
Well, that's, I mean, like Gandhi saying, being the change you want to see.
Yeah.
So that's what all you can do.
And to me, that's not an act of resistance, that's an act of forgiveness.
Well, exactly. But the point is as well, if you're standing in a queue and somebody's moaning because you're too close and they're fearful, or if somebody won't do this, they won't do that, you just got to forgive it and say, that's the only thing to do. I mean, I choose peace instead of this. And that's all you can do. But I think being sucked into the media, getting into whether it's the fear or the anger or how much money the pharmaceutical companies are making, or if it's Bill Gates or whatever that is, whether it's true or not. I have like I don't know, whether wars were created. Who knows any of that stuff? I don't know.
Well, Jesus is simply saying this is insane.
Yes.
So see it for what it is, right? The whole thing is madness.
Yes.
It's insanity. You will never find any peace or hope or anything in this. So dismiss it all. These laws are laws of madness. Only the laws of God apply. And don't give it any reality. Well, for me, that means I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to go and have a vaccine if it has no reality. Why would I? There's no reason. There's no virus. It's an illusion. So why would I now take a defense? Here's another lesson. So if we want to go.
No, but Johnny, can I just interject here? Because let me ask you, if you could go home to your wife and your child, Will you take the vaccine or you won't? Because you are not going to get into that country without taking the vaccine. So what's your
No, that's not true. I can. So,
what, without taking the vaccine?
they're not making it mandatory. You don't have to take a vaccine to fly
Mm.
yet.
Yeah.
But the point is they may.
No, they will.
But okay, so they will. So then, in order for me to be with my wife and son, I have to take this, and I don't want to take it. Now, like, then where's the free will there? Surely I should have a choice.
No, but what's your choice?
Well, if I absolutely had to, there was no other way, then I probably would, because it's like, okay, well, what's more important? But there's always another way. I can tell you, there's always another way. So I'm like, okay, well, Holy Spirit, there's no order of difficulty in miracles.
But there's also, if you look at it this way, is that just like Jesus said, that any vaccine to stop an illness, putting something into your veins makes no difference. But then the converse or the inverse of that applies as well, is that it doesn't matter what they inject into you, it makes no difference.
Exactly.
Well,
So for me, it's a new point.
at the highest level, but if they injected cyanide into you, it would make a difference.
Yes,
That would
but John, at the end of the day,
so,
I've got to die sometime. And
Yeah.
if the stars conspired, like Patricia said, and if the line crossed whatever the hell's happening, and for some reason I got the injection with cyanide, it was my call. Clearly, it was just the way.
Well, the course says no one died. I love this. One of my favorite lines in the course. No one dies without their own permission. So if you're going to die from corona, you've already pre-decided that. You came here with everything pre-decided. I don't understand what all the fuss is about.
Well, I just want to put my 2 cents worth in here, and that's, I think we are being called to draw a line in the sand. And we must use this thing that people are taking the power away from us because we gave our power away. So if everyone did stand together in unity, there would be no power. People couldn't make decisions for us because you can't control 7.8 billion people. It's just not possible. And I think that's what it's trying to teach us, is instead of acting as separate people, we've got to stand in unity, which we are one. And this is I think it's almost trying to speed us up into that awakening part. But if it's going to take another 100 years, 200 years, 10,000 years to get to that form of
Global unity.
Yes, global unity. Well, then so be it. But now we've got an opportunity to stand up now. So I took the vaccine. Why did I take it? Because I was supposed to go to Mauritius 2 years ago, and now they've opened the borders, and it was for my 5th year. And I can't get into Mauritius if I don't take the vaccine. So
they won't let you into the country.
no, you're not gonna. It's not gonna happen. So
And the airlines
So-
are being pretty strict.
yeah, no, I mean it's really starting. Like you said, Discovery. I think it's the second company. Restaurants, cinemas, big events. I mean, they're just clamping down, and there's no fear for me because I don't really care if I live or die. I must be honest. But not being able to see someone and not being able to see your family, that type of thing. So you conform, and that took a little bit away from me because I thought, geez, now I've conformed. So where do I draw my line? But the people are starting to rise. And the rallies are important. And all of those type of things are important because it's making people aware. Like in the UK now, they're already talking the booster shots, I think. So now everyone over 50 must have their 3rd shot now. They're trying to push that. Now they're going on to the teenagers. Now they
In
want to go to the
Canada,
5-year-olds.
John's friend, they're rolling out vaccine passports.
No.
So without a passport, you can't go shopping, you can't go to a restaurant. And come on, like we've had that. It's not going to work here because 25 years ago we had the pass laws, and you couldn't go anywhere without a passport. I mean, like, so what is that? It's the same thing.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic because it's going to push us to a point. And we're going to realize,
Okay.
hold on, these guys haven't taken our power away. We're actually giving it away. And the sooner we realize that we're giving it away for something that we created, and then see the insanity of it, the sooner.
What they really fear is that people will wake up and say, okay, enough.
Well,
Like, I'm just,
absolutely.
I
That's
see,
how they're trying to
I see
control.
the emperor has no clothes. You guys are, this is just the ego in overdrive, really. The ego's been in overdrive for the last year and a half. And no, enough.
But don't you think as well is as soon as somebody stands up, because think about it, as soon as somebody stands up and talks out about something, they like you in
They use it.
that news, they use it against them to say the person's a crazy.
Yeah,
they dig up
ravings. Yeah,
something, or
she
they're
talked about
ravings,
insane
exactly.
ravings and so on.
And that's,
Anyone you don't like.
That movie you sent out on your thing, Awake. What's the movie clip you sent out the other day about the renewable energy?
Thrive.
Thrive, yeah.
Yeah.
And he said as well, is that anybody who stood out,
Yes.
like Tesla, Nikola Tesla actually ended up being, you know, they made him into a total buffoon.
Yeah. Meantime, he invented AC current.
And he was so brilliant. But the only way they can get rid of anybody who challenges them in love and in peace and in light is to ridicule them, to try and break them down in society, in all of those ways. So I think that's what the vaccine can do to you as well. Your child can't go to school, you won't get a job, you know, all of these kinds of things will happen. But I think, like what Ian was saying, is that in peaceful resistance, in a Gandhi-ish way, in peaceful resistance, no matter what you do to me or don't do to me, you can't change my mind. You cannot. Yes, shoot me. Yes, you won't shoot my children like they did to the Nazis. You can take everything you can away from me. Do
But
whatever
I'm
you
eternal.
want. But I'm not afraid of you. It's like the Hunger Games. There's nothing left to lose. There's nothing left to lose. And I think that's just what's happening in a lot of places. So a lot of people are realizing, you shut down economies, you shut down this, you shut down that, you shut down that. What do we have? We have
our spirit.
We've got our spirit. And you know what? If we haven't been broken by now, it's shown us, just like you said about Oprah Winfrey, struggle makes us stronger. And if we can see things clearly without falling apart and sort of by, oh my God, we're all going to die. If we don't do that, if we actually step back and say, don't value what's valueless. Yes, I didn't get an increase for 2 years and I couldn't go to Mauritius and all these things that I would normally do or whatever. It's actually sit back and think, hold on a second. I've just got peace of mind and I've got clarity and I'm not afraid anymore. And if I'm not afraid, it means that I can do so many things that before my fear would have held me back from. So not only can I stop that job that I don't like, or can I do these other things? So in a way, it kind of unhinges you from, I mean, let's say, for example, the economy does go belly up and you lose your house. Now, what have you been released from? Yes, okay, you've got no house, but what have you got?
Well, you know.
I know. I
all the difficulties of home ownership.
Mortgage, I don't have this, I don't have that.
Maintenance.
I don't have maintenance. What have I learned? Yes, I've learned that I've got a lot of friends because I can stay at Patricia's for 3 months and pay rent and help Patricia. Or I can do something else, or I can go work somewhere where I get accommodation and I can do something. So for me, I think that being pushed into these places lets us learn. We would never have learned a lot about ourselves if we hadn't had this global virus, you know. So I think, to be honest with you, is that that's the way I'm seeing it. And I know that, and it sounds, and that's why I don't talk to anybody about it. I just don't talk to anybody about it at all. I smile and wave and I go do something else when they start talking about it at the office or anything like that. And you just don't mention it, but the point is that it's only your mind, and that's the only thing that counts. So I think that's also for me, is whether I have it or I don't have it for whatever reason. It's immaterial for me. You know, it's that's just my thing on it. For me, it's a moot point actually, and I'm not going to get sucked into all their nonsense on the. I don't watch the news anyway. The World Health Organization and all the blah blah blah. I'm actually not even interested, because tomorrow I can go for a run and a truck will hit me like it would have 10 years ago. Or
no, it's like a global dark night of the soul.
yeah.
And one thing we all seem to be forgetting is that this is for the better. So if everything comes from source, everything is a purpose. And we might not see it now because we're currently in it. But what's it doing is they're saying, remember source. Let's go back to source. So the lessons like you were bringing up now are phenomenal lessons. I mean, you just got to decide which way you want to see it. And it's allowing us to change our perceptions of it. So this is a fantastic thing that's happening. It's beautiful. And in order to do that, you might have to conform to certain things. But it's got that seed that's planted now.
Well, it's transformation.
And it's starting to move.
Yeah.
And we are going to see an uprising in the world, and I have no doubt whether that's like now in 5 years or whatever the case is. People are going to start waking up without a doubt, and that is fantastic. That should be celebrated because the ego screws itself.
Well, here's the thing: the more the ego does its thing and tries to control and oppress and stop and trade, the more it awakens the spirit in people. The more people go, well, I've got to go and find an alternative, and so they go within. They find that power in them. And so actually you need a catalyst like this. If everything's just going along hunky-dory, people don't really awaken. It's like, well, I go, go to work, I'm kind of in a comfort zone. There's nothing really pushing me to change. So this is about transformation. I went away in the hard lockdown last year. And as I was kind of discovering all this stuff, I was like, okay, so what's really going on here? So then you start watching the videos, conspiracy theories, and etc. And for a week or two, I was quite depressed. I was like, oh my God, this is just, I've kind of known about this from years ago. But now suddenly it's much more real. And then I remember just, it dawned on me. I was in nature, so that helped. It was just this beautiful mountain stream. And it just dawned on me. It was like, this is exactly what you've been waiting for your entire life. This is the opportunity for transformation on a global scale. If you're going to do something, I've had many business ideas, and this is the time to do it. Like, this is when something like really transformational could actually work. You need a situation like this to rise. It's not going to happen if the status quo maintains. So unwittingly, the powers that be, they're really under control of the ego, they are the architects of their own demise. Because by doing this, they're trying, right, now we're going to move into ego overdrive, whole plan for global control, domination, etc. And they believe they're going to succeed, obviously. They think the ego is more powerful than the spirit. They have no idea.
It's been driven by the spirit.
Yeah, exactly. Underneath all of that. Well,
they don't know that.
The spirit doesn't really do anything, but the spirit responds. Yes. The Holy Spirit always gives you the reinterpretation. So the Holy Spirit doesn't say, now I'm going to create global domination. No, that's the ego. But the spirit then responds to it and says, okay, this is how you see it differently. And the more the ego is doing its thing, the more the spirit comes into its own, because people then start to turn to it and say, well, look, this clearly isn't working. This is a pretty desperate situation. There's no hope outside. So I need to go within. And then, that's the wake up. And I don't think they have any idea of the process they've kicked off, because when people start to awaken en masse, and I think there are millions and millions, maybe even billions of people awakening because of this, that is a force that is unstoppable, right? In history, you can tell your husband this: if 3.5% of any population engage in any kind of passive resistance movement. So they actually say, okay, enough's enough. We're not going to be violent, but we're going to demonstrate, we're going to sign petitions, whatever. In history, if 3.5% of any population do that, then change happens. So that's not a massive amount of people. The global population, if there's 8 billion, what is that? That's like a few hundred million. A few hundred million people get this. Awakening happens, and I think that is happening, like globally now, not just in a country. It's like globally, enough people are saying, okay, hang on, what's really going on here? And I'm not fooled. Like, enough people are questioning, saying, I'm not fooled by all the smoke and the mirrors and the bullshit that the ego is. Like, actually, I know that there's something else. I know that this all is not right, and I know that there's truth. And so they start going much more into who they really are, seeking for truth, and then joining together in that and saying, well, yeah, this is a call to unite in the service of truth. And that is a very good process. That's not like we're fighting the ego. Well, I mean, some people can go there, but it's more like, let's stand together in the truth. And because the truth is more powerful than the ego, if you do that, enough people do that, the ego will simply fall away, because it cannot sustain against the power of that collective presence. And so I think we're going to live through the next 10 years. I think it's going to be just about the most exciting time that's happened for 2,000 years since Jesus came along. And then you're like, well, bring it on. What am I scared about? What am I worried about? This is what life is about. This is why I came. This is why I incarnated. And what an adventure. So, let's, and what can I do to be part of this awakening? Because that's what he's calling us to do. He's not saying just passively sit there and allow whatever. He's saying, I need your hands, I need your feet, I need your eyes, your ears, I need your willingness, guided by the Holy Spirit, to do what's necessary. So it's a call to awaken and a call to action. For me, that doesn't mean just go and accept whatever they're gonna put upon you, because what they want to put upon you is stuff that is not going to awaken you. It's going to keep you in a suppressed, controlled state. So it starts with vaccinations. Don't take the vaccine. They want to have vaccine passports. Don't have a vaccine. You've got to say no. I'm just not going to comply. I'm not violent, but I'm just not going to comply. If everyone did that, there would be no, how can they control 8 billion people? But they do it. Here's the thing, they do it by other people's opinions. So all they've got to do is plant these seeds in society of beliefs, and then the majority adopt them. And now it's like, oh, it's not what the government will think, it's what will my co-workers think? What will my spouse think? That becomes the problem. And then, and that's what I think you've got to be really vigilant on. Am I actually fearless here? Am I actually guided by the Holy Spirit? Or am I allowing this miasma of the ego, this collective ego, to come in and control me? Because that's what the game is. This is a mind control.
Well, I mean, it goes back exactly to, and I said for myself, is that the only things that can control me at the moment is my children and my love for my children, right? There are very few things that can control me. I'm not afraid of what I look like, what car I drive, you know what I mean? The status, all that rubbish that is important to lots of people. It doesn't apply to me at all. I don't care. So I don't care about the vaccine. I don't care about a lot of stuff that makes people strive and do all of that stuff. I'm kind of over it all. But the things, for example, about your children or whatever. But nevertheless, is that if it came down to the wire that my children were overseas or whatever, if my children had to go overseas to university, for example, and they had to have the vaccine, they would go. And who knows what happens? If you're here and they are, you've got a child overseas, I've got a child overseas. You don't know if you'll ever see those kids again. They're not being melodramatic, but you don't know what's going to happen in the era, right? And I think that's one of the things as well, is if you go right back to the beginning to say, there are no children. Robert, you have not got children. You have not got a husband. All you've got is your mind. Really, that's all you've got. So don't be afraid of losing that as well. Just be afraid of losing your mind. And it's not your mind in the way that I don't have my MBA. I'm not going to pass my MBA, but it's a mind that's
or
free.
which mind is going to control you?
Exactly.
The ego or the
so
spirit.
That's all you need to do in peace and with love, is say that I'm not going to be held captive because of my children.
She's aseptic, eh? And that's a big thing. But you said that's one of the things that can control you. So if you can let go of that, wow.
But you see, I think also just my life circumstances
As a mother,
at the
that must
moment
be hectic.
is that very big lessons as well have come out of this. Like, I'm living away from my kids for a prolonged time. I know they're fine. If a bus hit me tomorrow, they'd be fine. They'd be totally fine. I know that, and I'm very proud of them for that. And it's okay. I don't feel like I've forgotten them. They don't phone me. Sometimes I don't phone them. But that's okay. And that for me is such a lovely freedom. And that for me is that's the epitome of any relationship. Is it doesn't matter. I'm always here. If I ring the doorbell tomorrow, or if I go there for 3 months and you come, it's the same. There is no time. There's no place. We are, and that's all. And I think that for me is such a peaceful. That's where I have peace about life all the time at the moment. Is that it is. And it's a bit manic, but I don't listen to the manic stuff. I don't dial into CNN or any of that rubbish. I don't. I have now I'm with wonderful people in this room, and it's valuable, and that's all that matters now. And that's living for now is the only way for me, and I think that's the only way for peace in my mind.
Absolutely.
So that's
well said.
So push came to shove with your kids. You'd step back.
You know, Ian, I had to send my son, I had to make a choice when he was in high school of whether he was going to go overseas with my ex. And I'd had custody of him my whole life. It was really difficult, but I knew for him it was the best thing to do. And he was my only son, and I'd been with him until he was 16. And I had to put him on a plane and send him over with a father who'd never lived with him, with a guy that was not like a really good father. And I had to trust that that was the right thing for my son. And I look back now, and he's a citizen, and he's doing well, and he's got all of that stuff. And I think to myself, if I'd been afraid for me or him at the time, I would have hamstrung him. But, and it was difficult. And my friend said to me, how sort of a mother that you can just put a child on a plane and send them off and whatever. I said, I'm the best mother. Because I'm doing it for him, not for me. It's harder for me. For him, it's an adventure. For me, it's like wandering around an empty house thinking, where's my son? He's going to hate me for the rest of his life. But for me, that's the only way. It was the only opportunity. It's like those people you saw when the Taliban was coming out of Afghanistan. I don't know if you saw those pictures of the mothers throwing their children to the American soldiers. You know, and as that's what you must do.
Because you want so much more for
You
them.
love them so much that you will stay and they must go.
Yeah,
And that's the point.
It's the same with my
That's the
children. They
point.
have to live their own lives.
But at the same time, if they stayed here, it's also okay.
Yeah, and if they go overseas, which is what they're all planning, it's also okay.
Absolutely okay.
It really doesn't matter, because firstly, you can't live one day of their lives.
No.
You cannot live one single day. So if you love them enough, you just have to trust that they're okay, because Spirit cares as much for them as he does for me.
And if
So
you bounce
what?
that back, is if you care enough for yourself,
Yeah, exactly.
that
That I know that
everything's going to be fine. And that's the only way to live, because if you live in any other way, you're going to be on antidepressants.
But if it was the last time that you could see your child, or whatever the case is, the only thing stopping you seeing your child was having a vaccination or not, you would have it.
I'm not afraid of it.
And you, I know, okay,
Yeah.
that's the point. Because I come from a point where I've never been married, never had kids.
Yeah.
So there's something like different, because I don't know, understand their selflessness quite 100% yet. But okay, as long as you said that,
No,
because I mean you cannot hold on to like that is insanity as well.
no,
I will not have the vaccine, and therefore
I mean,
my child will die.
I'll
without
find
the
another
shot.
way.
Basically, there's always another way.
you know, my son's
Yeah, I'm
son,
saying
they
choose
got-
your battles, you know.
Australia's locked down, they say till May next year. So at the moment, I don't need it. I've been flying this whole year. I've been on planes, up and down all the time. I've been working in a warehouse every single day. I've not had one day of illness. I haven't missed a day of work in 2 years. And I'm back and forth. I'm on buses off the plane. I'm sitting like this on the plane. I've not been sick at all. My children are not sick. My husband's been on the front line in a hospital, dealing with COVID cases, in and out of COVID wards. Every single day, coming home, hello honey, how are you? Nobody is sick. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm not afraid of it. But at the same time, if, for example, my children weren't allowed to go to university because they haven't had it, that's fine. Either way, it doesn't really matter to me. For me, it's like
And again, it's their choice. If they want to have it, then they can have it. But you have to choose moments, each moment. Yesterday was my grandson's party, but my youngest granddaughter, she was attached to me. So we did everything the whole day. Lying on the couch with her lying on top of me, watching some random movie is the most valuable moment, and her holding my hand, because she says, I love you, my granny. You're my special granny. You know, you can't, that moment is so valuable. But if one day she has to go overseas, I know it will be okay, because we've had all these moments that you can't take away from anybody. And it's the same with your children. When I sent my son to the army when he was 18, it's hard. I didn't know when he was coming back. He was going to the British Army and they were starting the war in Afghanistan. How did I know? But Spirit had a different plan for him. Next 6 months later, he was back. They said, no, you can't come here. We don't know. We just don't know. I wanted to read something that's been on my mind for a bit every time we get together. Just have to find it again. Sorry, bear with me a moment. We have found the way He chose us and made the choice to follow it, as he would have us go. His hands has held us up. His thoughts have lit the darkness of our minds. His love has called us unceasingly since time began. I'm going to end there because I think that really says God has never stopped calling us. We're on this journey because we've heard that call. We can never go back. I can never go back to the way my life was 15 years ago and live in fear and wonder what tomorrow brings and not get enough sleep or any of that, because I can never go back to that fearful life. Because I know that part of me, this is my journey. I might not be getting life in this lifetime. You know what? That's also okay. If I have to learn this all over again next time, that's also okay.
The next lifetime. I've read this book before.
This is also familiar.
I'm like, oh, I went to the World Health Organization again.
Exactly. So to me, that God has been calling us since time began. It's just the most precious thing.
And maybe this is our answer to that. Maybe this is our opportunity to answer that.
Yeah, I think
call.
there's a call, and it's like, well, choose again. The whole course's message is about choice. Will you choose spirit or will you choose the ego? So it's a time where we've been called to choose, and if we make the right choice, then obviously we're going to be happier, more peaceful, ultimately attain enlightenment. But it's also about the collective. So I just wanted to speak to that a bit, because at the end of this this podcast, they were saying, well, actually, freedom, what is freedom? And they talked a bit about it, and they said, well, actually, individual rights should be submissive or under the collective. What's good for the collective. And then you watch, say, the Thrive movie, and they give a completely opposite idea. They're saying, yes, that seems to be seductive, but if you look at all control systems in history, it's always about the collective over the rights of the individual. That's how it works. Oh, we need to do this for the collective. And then these states, mostly states, sometimes religions, do the most horrendous things in the name of the good of the collective. No, we need to all do that. Like, Stalin was a classic example. No, this is, we're building Russia, but this needs to happen for the collective, and millions of people die in the name of this collective good, which never really materializes. Actually, it ends up being collective enslavement. So you got to be really vigilant, because the ego has a collective will as well. The ego's group will is that we all stay in bondage together and in darkness together, and someone else's opinions now control you. That's the ego's will. Whereas individual rights, although there is no individual, what it does mean is that you now have free will. You have the ability, in fact, the responsibility to choose. You must choose. And no one can take that power away from you. So it actually speaks directly to what the Course is saying. You have choice. And it comes up to every individual to make that choice. And no one can impose that. No one can tell you what your choice should be. If you deprive people of choice, then that is tyranny. That's enslavement. They must have choice. We always do have choice, even in the most harsh situations. As you said, concentration camps and imprisonment, you still have the choice. Am I going to believe this or not? Am I going to stay free in my mind? However, ideally, we don't want to go into a situation in society where everyone is that enslaved, and then, okay, well, we're all doing it in our minds. Actually, why can't we thrive? Why can't we live healthy, happy, abundant lives and just be extraordinary? Why can't we? We could. All the capacities there, the spiritual knowledge is there, the technology is there. It's all there. If enough people say, okay, that's what I choose.
I think that goes down for two levels for me on that. The one is that no matter what the organization, look at the Catholic Church, how corrupt it's been at the top, and the evils that get in the name of these horrible things that happen.
In the name of God,
in any large organization, you know what I mean? Anything, it always goes rotten, because the rottenness goes through, and there's whatever
Yeah,
the organization.
There's a great Afrikaans saying, 'n vis vrot van die nek af.'
Yes, exactly. So any place, whether it's a government or whether it's a World Health Organization or a corporate or, whatever it is, there's always something that goes wrong because people get put into power and they earn money and then it all just starts falling apart. So I think on that level, it's going back to what I said earlier, is that I won't value what is valueless. So what is valuable is your peace of mind. So that's the only thing that's valuable. So why did we work originally? To get peace of mind, right? That we're going to be all right when we get old? Okay, let's strike that. Why do we take all our vitamins and all of that? To be healthy? Oh, but now there's coronavirus. Strike that. So all of the things that, like they're saying, all of these things you've aspired to and rushed after. Why did you study your MBA? Why did my husband spend 14 years studying medicine? Why? I don't know. And I wouldn't recommend anybody study medicine. To be honest, everyone's got anyone who out there wants to study medicine. I'm just being sarcastic. And I mean, my brother's done law and you've done this and all these massive. It's the same as everybody else. So I think what I'm saying is don't stop doing it if you love it and be the best doctor, lawyer, whoever you are in the light. You know what I mean? You're not going to go and defend corrupt politicians to earn massive money. Maybe you are, I don't know, but you know what I mean? That's not the ideal way. But what I think as well, what it brings us down to in this sort of global crisis is to say your peace of mind and your freedom of thought are the only two things that actually can make you happy or sad. It's the only two things. So whether you have the injection, don't, whether you with the people you love or not, whatever those things are, sitting here, your child and wife or some my husband and children or somewhere else, I know they love me. I know they love me and they know I love them. And we love each other and we can think of each other and we connect with each other. And that's all that matters. Because we can be in the same room with them, and if we don't love them, we're not loving them right now. They're sitting right there, or they can be in bed next to you and you cannot love them. That kind of thing to me is for me the key learning of just going back, boiling it right down to exactly what it means. It means that no matter what happens, the people I love, and I do it, and whatever I do in love. Like when I had to come here this weekend, I thought there were two ways of thinking about it. Hold on a second, I can be begrudging that I have to spend my weekend looking after the painter, the builder, and this is like my weekend and I'm not seeing my children and costing me a fortune or whatever. Instead, I decided to look at it the other way. So I phoned up this sweet Malawian lady who's often out of work. And whenever I hear her, she's the happiest, smiliest, chirpiest thing who never has any work. But whenever she arrives here, her smile is from here to here. She arrives looking like she's just bounced straight out of like a rainbow. She's as happy as Larry. I can do anything. Today, we went into this dusty thing covered with spiders and spiderwebs, she and we carried stuff and we chucked stuff in a skip. That was our whole day. But I can tell you something. There was not one person I phoned in Joburg to go meet me for lunch at Hyde Park or in Parkhurst. So on Friday night, I went to a movie on my own. It was lovely. I sat in an empty movie house with red tape all over. I took off my mask and I devoured a whole packet of popcorn. And I sat there all on my own. It was the best. Cool. It was kind of spooky because before I got there were 2 horror movie trailers. And I was like, cool. I thought it was spooky because I was sitting right in the middle of this dark place. I thought, oh my God, I don't even know who's in the back row. Yeah. I just walked in and sat down. But I ate my popcorn and then I came home. And then on Saturday, I spent the whole day with these builders. But in an absolutely peaceful, happy way. It was the happiest, peaceful day. And I thought to myself, I don't care that I'm not at some place having lunch with people that I should meet up with in Johannesburg. Yes, my husband's at the beach with the kids. Good. They're having fun. They did a mangrove beach cleanup or something. And I was absolutely happy. And I think that for me is, I didn't think about it at any level other than that, it's fun. I'm paying this oak. So I'm moving something through the economy for somebody who's working hard and doing it in a way that he's proud of, and his people were proud, and everybody was respectful, and it was a lovely environment. And the tenant was here, it was just peaceful. And it's gone without a problem. Everything's been so nice, the people have been so nice, they've cleaned up, there hasn't been, and for me, it's just been smooth sailing, if you know what I'm saying.
You're in flow.
Which is so nice, and that for me is like, if my learning is that there is no bad situation. It's the only way you think about it. So I think that for me it's such a relief, and that's the only thing that matters is that whatever happens to you, like your plane is missed, anything happens to you, or like you got this opportunity to stay in South Africa for a time, and you're doing something else with it. You're not here crying, thinking your wife's having an affair and your child doesn't love you anymore. You're doing something else that's valuable. And I think that's the only way to get through this whole drama.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll comment on that. So I've noticed, I mean, it's been summer there. So they've had some nice times, they're going out and they're on holiday, and I was planning to go back for the holiday and then I didn't. And so it's just interesting how the ego works, because you're like, oh, I'm here and I'm not there. And you notice that kind of missing out kind of idea coming into your mind. But, when I notice it, I'm just, all right, well, I'm just happy they're having a good time. And I'm here and I'm doing what I do. I'm doing what I can do. And so it's okay.
Exactly.
But it's just kind of reminding yourself, like, what is now is what is. If I resist that, if I'm not accepting that, then I'm, by definition, I'm in the ego, because I'm saying what's here now isn't good enough. I should be there, but I can't be there. So now I have an expectation and then a grievance that I'm not there. And obviously it wants to do that. But it's, this practice just trains you to see it and go, okay, well, I can see it, but I'm not going to go into it. I'm not going to energize that and go, oh, it's okay, I see it, let it go. And the value of it is, well, I'm doing this. I'm having this fabulous conversation with, people who are like-minded and connecting. And so that wouldn't happen if I were there. So, you just got to accept, see the good,
Yeah. So I think this is just, I always believe the truth will always out there. And that's what's happening here. The truth is coming out. And what is the truth? There's only one word for truth, I think. Well, only one word, which is love, I think. And I think you can hold that as a cornerstone, and see it for what it is. Oh man, it's just so awesome. On whatever side, and there should be more gratitude. And I think that's, people are going down to basics, what you were saying earlier, like people are getting down to basic principles that we've forgotten, that we're not paying attention to anymore because we're driven by other things. And it's just stripping it all back. And it's just saying, just see how beautiful that is, just see how beautiful this is. And people are changing, and it's fantastic, and I'm changing. And then I'm not, and then I am, and then I'm not, and then I am. And I'm hoping that, the gaps will become shorter and shorter and shorter, and that I can just live in that truth.
If you think about it as well, is that because everything, if you think about like that Einstein kind of principle of that kind of ripple effect of the change, is that 1 minute ago you didn't have the same idea, the same feeling, the same energy that you have now. And after this session, we'll all have we've moved from where we were, we've collaborated, we've shared, we've extended, and that for me is the most fundamental part, because it's that sea of that energetic feeling. And if you can imagine the universe that as we know it, in every home or in every city around the world, in every culture, whether it's in India, Brazil, Russia, whatever, there are people sitting in a room like us this afternoon discussing something like this on some other level. That's what the universe is doing. So what we're saying is that we're sending it out there, that it's there, and we're resonating with somebody. And that's where that resonance of that torus thing that you were showing.
Yeah, it's like the quantum field.
It's like the quantum field. So
you're in a field of thought, and if everyone's thinking the same thoughts, then things change.
And if you think about it, the interlocking lead of miracle, the interlinking
chain of miracles.
So being a friend is a miracle, being kind to someone is a miracle, being gentle with somebody, all of those things are in every day. And all of those things create that momentum, and all of them are creating they're
creating the new world.
Exactly.
Right? So saying we want to change the world, well, how does that work?
Exactly.
It works moment by moment, individual choice by individual choice. And everyone makes the right choices.
And doesn't that there are no order of difficulty, and there's also no thing more important than the other. It's on a Tuesday when I go to work, there's all those guys who pull those waste trolleys, and they're like really, I believe they're working hard for a living. Right? So whenever I have I make a big loaf and I just put peanut butter arms, and then when instead of just driving past them, I give them like Meals on Wheels.
Yeah.
And I get the most amazing amount of blessings from them.
Yeah.
There's not one person once who hasn't said, God bless you. And it's not why I'm there. I'm there because I happen to have bread and peanut butter at home and I don't eat it.
Yes.
But I'm lucky enough to be able to share it. And I can tell you something, that there is, if you look people in the eye, they're wonderful people. It's not their fault that they're doing that and they didn't have a bath. It's not their fault. They're not going to kill you. They're trying to get a day's work, just like I'm going to work, they're going to work. And I think that's the kind of thing that in every single day, if you look for that kind of thing, you can find it. And you can get, but you cannot find it just at a coffee shop in Hyde Park, for example, that example I gave. You can't just find it on an island holiday to Mauritius. You can find it every single day in your place of work or in a queue.
Absolutely.
And that's where I think is if you can get those same, if you actually tap into it and you stop trying to, because it's across all the classes, it's across everything you do all the time, that you can actually feel it all the time. And that to me is for me the biggest gift, is that there's a constant gift. I mean, I put that banana you bought, I put it on the table. There's been about 15 birds out there, lories, barbets.
Eating it.
It's gone now, but it's been the most lovely thing to watch them, because as soon as I put it out, they all come along, and it's just like a fun thing for me. But that to me is such a gift.
That's almost like living the meditation.
Well, I just find
It's living in flow.
Yeah.
There's many words for it. But,
So you can sit down and meditate for half an hour, and it makes you that, but you can live it 24 hours a day.
And I had
That's something to
a
achieve.
girl who lived here on a property. She'd spent 2 years in Lagos working on a contract. And when she got here, she said, no birds. She said, because the water is so polluted with oil and so filthy, and everybody burns generators because the power is such dirty, it comes and goes. She said, the place is filthy, filthy, filthy. You can't breathe. Everyone runs air conditioners the whole time. She said, it's a terrible, terrible place. But she says, you don't realize that there are no birds. And she said, like here,
birds.
they're trees and they're birds. And it's for me that, those kind of things, when you actually sit down and say, although they might not really be there, maybe they're fabrications of my mind, but they're beautiful and they're, you know what I mean? If you think about a tree, and the amazing things trees do, and especially now with all the blossoms and the buds coming up, I mean, that to me is that's a miracle of nature. And like somebody said one day, miracle, nature is just love. It just gives the whole time. You know what I mean? It just gives and gives and gives no matter what we do to. And that's the kind of stuff is if you look at everything like that, you can't be disappointed. Really.
Well, you're seeing the life. There's life, the life essence in everything is the life, the governing principle. So it's in the birds, it's in the trees, it's in human beings. Even in Lagos, you could find it there.
Yeah.
It's there. Even the worst situations, you can, because it's
exactly.
it's the underlying reality. Sometimes you have to go just into your own mind to find it, because if you're in a concentration camp, the situation is so ghastly. But still, with people, you could connect to the person. You're like, actually, there's love and there's connection. So thank you for sharing that. That's I call it an extraordinary ordinary life. That's what it's about. There's actually a great movie called About Time where they talk about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just being extraordinary. It's not like you're doing anything extraordinary. You're just living your life. You're doing normal things, but it becomes an extraordinary experience because you're in that miraculous state of mind. There's flow, and you don't need anything else. It's just like builders, painters. Most people are just chores. I like to go for lunch in Hyde Park because that's extraordinary, but actually it's not.
And it's because everyone else deems it special and oh my gosh, you've just been there, we've just been there. And all of that frivolous idiot. I mean, it's nice to go for lunch, just like I went to a movie or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's nice, but you're doing it for a different reason. So I think
And the point is, it's not like the highlight. Oh, you know, everything's about that.
Yeah.
I mean, Eckhart Tolle talks about in one of his videos. Like, okay, so let's say even you've won the Nobel Prize. You know, this is like the crowning achievement of your life, and you go to the, you know, in Oslo, and there's a balcony, and then there's people below. So what's actually happening? You're walking onto a balcony. It might be a nice day. There's some sun, or maybe there's some clouds, whatever, and you wave to people. I mean, what are you actually doing? You just, it's all about your interpretation. So you might, oh, wow, this is amazing. But if you do that, then when the balcony moment's over and you go and you sit on your own, you're going to be like, oh, now I somehow feel like a come down, you know? It's like, I want, when actually every moment you're just doing what you're doing. You could be the most famous person in the world, and you're just sitting, you're eating, you're going to a car, you get into a limo. Doesn't matter. You just, that's, you know, because it's just that's what it is now. And so then there's none of that interpretation of all of these things. And it's the mind's interpretations that create the expectations and the grievances. So it's like, yeah, you could be living that life. You could be, you know, flying in private jets and whatever. But if you're not attached to it, it's just like, well, okay, that's what I'm doing now. I'm getting onto a plane and I'm sitting and I'm making a phone call and I'm chatting to someone, whatever. Yeah. I'm meditating. And you know, that's available all the time. Doesn't matter what you do.
No, I just want to say something very quickly. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing for me today, it just dawned on me, the greatest gift of today's session is just reminded me to give gratitude in every single moment. And for that, I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
I mean, out of everything that happened today, it's just reminded me, but no matter what, just give gratitude, because it's an absolute bloody blessing. Mm. And that's such a nice, it's such a nice reminder, because from this point on, for as long as it lasts again, I'll be operating from a different tangent. You know, sometimes we just forget.
Well, yeah, that's the value of these sessions.
For myself. But yeah, so that's been very great for me.
Thank you, everyone. We got some feedback here. Everyone's left on Zoom, but Kim said, well, let's see. Karen said, hey, Jono, thank you for today. Had to leave. Enjoy the rest of the session evening. Kim said, hi, everyone. This has been an amazing discussion. I need to leave. I'll catch up on the recording. And John said, likewise, it's been really interesting, but need to go now. So I'm gratitude coming through there. So thank you, everyone, although you're not here, for joining. Shall we close it up with a little couple of minutes of love and gratitude? That would be appropriate. So just sitting quietly. Close your eyes. Breathe in. Nice deep breath in, fill up the stomach, into the chest. You just feel like you're breathing in the very essence of this love and gratitude for the session, the joining, the discussion, guidance of the Holy Spirit through all of it. Feel that gratitude. So no matter what's happening, no matter what the tests and the challenges are that life throws you, this loving presence is always there. It's always available. And that is the source of your gratitude. Love is, and it always has been, and always will be. It will carry us through all the trials and tribulations of this world of time and space. Exhale. And have a sense of just extending that love and that gratitude to everyone in the room, everyone who joined us on Zoom, and everyone in this community, those who joined us today and those not, and everyone else in your life, family, friends. work colleagues, acquaintances, social network. Just that love and gratitude radiating out from you. To bless and to heal everyone. Breathe it in one more time. Imagine you breathing in the very essence of love and gratitude into every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being. You're filled up with this love and gratitude, which goes with you. Unless in the course, God goes with you wherever you go. So this love and gratitude go with you wherever you go. You're never absent. They're always there. Only you can block them. You just set the intention to stay there, to stay connected. This love and gratitude for the rest of the afternoon and evening. Move on into your week ahead. Exhale on that intention. So it is said, so it is done. You just feel like it's flowing through you and outwards into the quantum field to bless and to heal everyone and everything. Notice how you're feeling, just calm, peaceful, loving and grateful. And by noticing this state of mind, you can anchor it in the rest of the afternoon, evening. So set that intention, and so it is said, by your will, and so it is done. And when you're ready, give yourself a few moments of silence just to feel this love and gratitude. Notice the silence underlies any sounds. That still presence is where love and gratitude comes from. So allow yourself to experience it for maybe a minute in silence. And when you're ready, just gently open your eyes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting us, Robin.
Nice to see you. Thank you, Robin.
Did you hear the frog?
No.
Thank you so much.